for a shot. There it is. It is Bagney. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Looking to throw downfield, and it's intercepted. Underthrown, and Kobe Savage has the pick.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Johnston in motion. Play fake. There it is. The tight end, Wiley.
Wow. Good job, Jim. Timmy B.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Another third down. Plumlee in trouble. Gets away. Now he's going to run it across the 30, down to the 25. Still on his feet. Down to the 10. Almost to the 5-yard line. That's what John Rice Plumlee can do for you at quarterback.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Williams wants to fade, stoops in the end zone for a touchdown, Oklahoma.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
39-yarder blocked. Picked up. The Cowboys' Corey Black. Hit by the turf monster, but can't be stopped. Another special teams touchdown for the Oklahoma State Cowboys.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. Another conference has begun their media days. The Mountain West Conference earlier today, the Pac-12 later in the week. The Big Ten will have theirs, among others. And in fact, I said, Paul, Craig, David Smoak with you. Put up a list, by the way, in case you don't know, what is the schedule for various conferences to have their media days? The Big 12 had theirs up in Arlington, of course, last week, and we were there. So here is the list of the conference media days, just in case you're curious. The Mountain West started today. The SEC's wrapping up tomorrow. And then you have the Mid-American Conference, the MAC, the Pac-12 on Friday. And then next week you have the American, the ACC, Conference USA, Sun Belt, and then later in July, not that far away though, the Big Ten will have their media days, which used to come and go, and now, of course, there's a lot of extravaganza, and that's where we are with that. Now, speaking of the Mountain West Conference, they have released their media poll, and then we're going to get into the San Diego State story. But here's their media poll, and Jeremiah Dickey and Boise State are at the very top as far as pick to win the Mountain West Conference. That's not a surprise. They received most of the votes in the poll, and they are the odds-on favorite to win the Mountain West Conference. But now, there it is. Boise State, there's Air Force, Fresno State, San Diego State. We're about to get into that. And then down the list, Nevada and New Mexico at 11 and or 12.
Yeah, I mean, all due respect to their athletic director, Jeremiah Dickey, but I don't think many people are going to think of Boise State with him. Andy Avalos, he's got a good thing going, but Jeremiah Dickey certainly, as AD, doing a good job of getting that program, to a point where they're at the level of respectability they feel they should be at the top of the conference where they are. And, certainly a team that's on the outside looking in of a few things that they would like to be on the inside looking out of right now as far as conference realignment. But, yeah, they, that first year was a little bit rough, but I think they've steered the ship correctly since then, and looks like they're in store for a big year. And they've obviously got that, what's the second non-conference game they have against a Big 12 team? It's
UCF.
Yeah, UCF. So that ought to be a good game early on.
I brought up Jeremiah Dickey because I traded some text messages with him last night trying to get maybe a little of information about maybe some of the nuances with the San Diego State Mountain West story. But yes, you're right. Avalos is the football coach.
By the way, Hawaii is picked 10th. New Mexico is picked 12th. Hawaii doesn't have a stadium right now. They're playing in the practice facility on campus. The Hula Bowl, or Aloha Stadium, drove past it many times while I was there, is condemned right now. So
is it really?
It's condemned. Yeah, they're going to have to redo it and all this, knock it down. I don't know how if they have to knock the whole thing down, but I one of my Uber drivers while we were on Oahu, I was asking him about it, and he's like, yeah, he was very bummed about it. He says the biggest thing that goes on there now is they have a big farmers market in the parking lot of Aloha Stadium there, and which used to be the site of the Pro Bowl, Hula Bowl, all that stuff.
I went to that stadium one time.
Yeah, and so it's
on the way back from Japan.
So how bad do you have to be at New Mexico to where Hawaii, who is playing in their practice facility on campus right now, is picked ahead of you?
Yeah, that's not a good deal. And of course, who knows, the Mountain West Conference also with some of what happened with San Diego State. And speaking of which, Ross Dellinger, who's the one that had the story about the Pac-12 would not release their media deal yesterday, he wasn't the only one. Others, including Mark Ziegler, who will follow up today. He'll join us at 4 o'clock from the San Diego Union-Tribune. The Mountain West Conference informing San Diego State they will remain a member. And then what they have to do in return, they get the $6.6 million due to them, which the conference was going to hold back in case they decided to leave. Responsible for covering the legal fees. The conference expensed over the legal work back and forth exchange between San Diego State and the Mountain West. So everybody is hugging, they're kissing, and they're back together again.
Yeah, and we had a good talk about this yesterday. Yeah, the Mountain West had to enforce its rules, but they were wise not to get in the weeds and get too mad about this thing because at the end of the day, nothing has really changed as far as San Diego State still in the conference and can't go anywhere. But this probably also had a good talk about, hey, the next time this comes up, here's what everybody needs to do. And San Diego State just firing the shot in the dark like they did was just kind of a really silly thing. Like, I know that you're ready and you want to go and it's probably going to happen for you, but I mean, you do know which conference you're trying to join right now, right? The one that is not really moving swiftly as to what their future is going to be. So you probably just out of respect and reality for your hopeful new brethren, just wait a minute until they get it figured out.
Yeah, they jumped the gun. I mean, that much is clear. Is they operated without getting the full green light, and were a little bit ahead of themselves in some form or fashion. I think it does leave a little bit of egg on their face, but it's okay. They've wiped it off, and they're back at the table, and everything's not hugs and kisses like you were joking about. I think it's definitely the opposite of that. I don't think it's cold shoulders and angry looks or anything either. I just think it's awkward. And as long as San Diego State goes and wins, and particularly wins at a level like they did last year, the Mountain West will love all that money and all that will be great. But I don't think we're ever going to return to a kumbaya situation. And I still think the end game is San Diego State finding their way to the Pac-12 eventually. It's just that now you have a little bit longer of a wait. And as we know with all things Pac-12, that wait could be next week. That wait could be a year from now. We really don't know. And now there's precedent for things to have lasted a year that are in the news cycle. So that's certainly a possibility. And now with this, I don't know, I was reading some of it last night. They would not be able to exit. I mean, I'm sure it could be negotiated, and there's things that could trigger, an easier exit than just what's on, paper legally. But does this tie them down for a couple more years? I mean, as far as what
unless they want to pay.
Which I guess we get to Mark Ziegler and get into that with him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're in the same position they were when they tried to not sneak out, when they tried to get out and ask for a little bit of forgiveness. So, I mean, the bottom, and Mark will join us, as Craig, you mentioned, at 4 o'clock. But no, nothing has changed. They'll still have to pay $34 million based on the timeline of whenever they decide they're going to leave. And as I agree with you, the Pac-12. Now, one of the leave for the Pac-12. Now, Mountain West Commissioner Navarez, when asked about San Diego State, her quote was that this agreement came earlier in the week. Won't get into specifics, but part of it was we landed in a very, very good spot. There she is on the podium to start the media. We landed in a very, very good spot. She kind of threw the dagger, and no one's going to budge here. San Diego State felt like they had a right. The Mountain West felt like they had the bylaws. So it's nice to see that humans, adults, can sit at a table and make things work out. And so there we are, Mountain West Conference protecting their turf. And if San Diego State decides they can leave, and want to leave, they can leave, but there will be penalties based on the time.
Yeah, but they even knew in their letter that they didn't necessarily have the right to do it because they were like, hey, we'd like an extension, please. And then it was just fumbled so badly by them not having an invitation. And, had they had a legit Pac-12 invite where they could have said, look, we're joining the Pac-12. They're going to make the announcement on July 19th, 2 days before media days, and then we're gonna have the big rollout. Then the extension would have probably made sense. But if you're the Mountain West Conference and you call back and you say, so are you joining the Pac-12? And then San Diego State goes, oh, we don't know yet. And they're like, well, no, then you're not.
Yeah. I know, and we will talk to Mark about it, and I even asked him in a text. I mean, what do you know what they were offered, and there's got to be something that they were given, the feeling that they'd walk away, and then maybe it was just maybe they jumped the gun on what they thought was coming from the Pac-12, and because I know a lot of people want to blame the Pac-12 for everything, but in this case, it could have been San Diego State jumped the gun. So there's that with the Mountain West Conference. Now a couple of different things. The SEC continues their media days. 4 days, wraps up tomorrow. And this one here we must discuss. Nick Saban, who could walk on water, the greatest college football coach ever, and I think he is, with all due respect to everybody else. He was asked about what kind of cake he likes. Now, Paul, we have gone back and forth with your favorite cake. You like the fruity stuff. I like just pure chocolate. I think, Craig, that's what you like, correct? Chocolate cake?
No, it really depends. My favorite is actually cookie cake, but as far as regular cake goes, I like the strawberry Little Debbie, box cake as much as I'd like the chocolate Little Debbie. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it'd have to be very specific on what flavors we're talking, but I like both of them just fine.
I don't want you to answer because I don't want you to condemn yourself.
Look, there's many different types of cake. Look,
no, favorite.
Come here. Look at this face. Do you think I can pick a favorite cake?
No, but
who do you like better, Jennifer or Craig?
Both.
Okay. No, that's Jennifer for sure.
God, what the hell?
I'm
a chocolate cake guy.
I prefer.
What is your favorite cake?
I do like a chocolate cake.
Okay.
Yeah. It just depends.
All right.
There's nuance to it.
All right.
But this is something I've never understood. And you can report on the story because I don't understand why this cake even exists.
All right. So Nick Saban said, when asked about his favorite cake, is a carrot cake.
It was my dad's favorite cake, which meant every December 14th was going to be the one day where his son did not enjoy sweets because I don't. If I want carrots, I'll eat carrots. If I want cake, I'll eat cake.
Yeah.
I don't think that this mutant combination needs to exist.
Craig, if I put a top 100 cakes you would like, would carrot cake eventually be on there? Like it's 75 or where?
Yeah, it'd be in the bottom part because I don't think there's like 100 different variations on cake. Maybe there is, when you get down into all the various flavors. But yeah, all flavors, other than in probably weird ones, because I'm pretty vanilla when it comes to food choices. Shocker, I know, but no, carrot cake sucks. I don't like it. I don't like the texture of it. I think there's in there have y'all had carrot cake but without like the bits of it in there? Where I guess it's just plain cake though.
Yeah.
That's I just like the plain cake. I don't like tasting food that's like within the. I don't like the little bits in there. I don't like that at all.
I don't like chunky peanut butter because of that.
Right.
Because
same concept.
It does the same thing, and so I don't want little vegetables floating in my cake.
No,
I like carrots.
I want icing. I want whatever the cake is made of. Eric, by the way, real quickly, I'm going to go with whatever Paul says. He knows cake.
Yeah, I mean, look,
new T-shirt for the merch store. Paul knows cake.
However, Amanda is not happy with your cake selection. You all this fruity stuff that you like.
Yeah.
She's not happy with it. Not a fruit cake, but all the other stuff that is not just cake.
No, so for my birthday in 2022, my mom asked what kind of cake I wanted. And I said, you know what? I haven't had a pineapple upside down cake in a while. I like that. And so she made one. It was delicious, but Amanda, felt left out of it because it's not one that she likes.
Whose birthday was it?
It was mine.
Yeah, but she has a right to feel that way.
Well, no, I've been told that now what's mine is hers and what's hers is also hers.
No, absolutely.
So
yeah, you're right. All right, so we had that. Kim Coulter saying red velvet for me too.
I like red velvet. So Saban's was carrot cake. That's what you said.
Carrot cake.
Regular,
Yeah.
I mean that. Yeah, I could see that.
And Ross Dellinger had fun with it. He goes discuss, and there was, as you can imagine, kind of a fun light moment at the SEC. This is also one from Nick and his wife Terry celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. They went over to
Austin to look for houses.
They went to Austin. Man, you are on fire today. So, Jack, it's the 50th anniversary. They went to, I think, Italy. And Saban saying, we got roll-tided everywhere we went. We went to the Ferrari plant in Maranello. Those cats don't even speak English, and we even got roll-tide.
Yeah. Well, see, it shows you how popular college football is getting. Football, the sport, is getting more and more popular in Italy. So not a big surprise, although Ferrari and carrot cake are two different things altogether. Carrot cake is the is the Kia Rio of cakes, and Ferrari is definitely not that.
Well,
yeah, I wouldn't say carrot cake's a Ferrari, but no, I mean that's a cool little anecdote by Saban. You know, I'd imagine there's probably, some crossover over there. We know that there's the Italian Football League that got a lot of exposure when Browse went over there to coach a few years back. And I know that league seemingly is healthy, or at least, has got a little bit of a following. So there is an American football, sliver there in Italy. And, maybe that's some of the folks he came across, or maybe just some other Americans touring. I don't know. But Saban, if anybody was going to get, recognized in another country in the college football world, it would be him right at the very top of the list, I would imagine. So, yeah, that's believable, and probably a pretty cool experience for both sides there.
All right, one more thing from Nick Saban. He was featured along with other schools today on Hugh Freeze, who's back in the conference now at Auburn. He goes, I have tremendous amount of respect for Hugh Freeze. I'm sure he'll do a very good job at Auburn. His history as a coach sort of speaks for itself. He's a good recruiter. They had really good players at Ole Miss. I'm sure he'll do the same thing at Auburn.
Good news for Hugh Freeze is the same things he did at Ole Miss are now legal to do at Auburn. So, it's kind of worked out for him in the long run. He didn't even get fired because of the recruiting stuff. He got fired because of some poor decisions he made off the field, away from all that, but which no need to go into. But Saban should be a little bit nervous because Hugh Freeze kind of had his number a little bit when he was in the league on that, and I think Hugh Freeze will do a great job coaching in Auburn if he can withstand the ebb and flow of how much they love you day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute in Auburn, Alabama.
Well, is he going to be self-destructive?
Yeah.
Self-destructive people usually repeat that pattern over and over and over again until they finally blow up. And, he's had a couple of moments where it looked like it might have blown up for him, or at least this last time. And it not blow up and like he would never coach again, but certainly a little bit of stain, and goes to Liberty and, has the very quirky hospital bed incident, was a highlight, I think, of that whole tenure, and, won games, as most people have at Liberty, and did a good job. And, he's a great coach. I don't think you can say whoever knows him well enough to do so, whatever flaws you think he may have personality-wise or the way he went about his business previously, that all may be true depending on who it's coming from. But, the thing that I think everybody can agree on is the guy's a great head coach. Like, he's a really good college football head coach. And so I think he's going to win at Auburn. I think it's not going to take very long for them to start winning and to feel like they're going in the right direction. I don't worry about that at all from that standpoint. I think it's a good hire. But I do wonder whether or not he's going to be self-destructive again. And that's the question. If he can stay away from, getting himself into things that he shouldn't be involved in, then he'll have a nice long career there and probably win a lot of games and maybe even win the SEC a time or two. You never know. But if he's going to sit there and go the route that he did previously, then he'll probably find himself in trouble again. So, he's saying the right things. He seems to be a changed man, so to speak, but I've seen a lot of changed men that weren't changed at all. They were just changed for the cameras. And so I hope the best for him. And I think that if he can stay on the right course and just be smart with his decision-making, then they'll have a really good run there in Auburn, Alabama.
Auburn had won 6 consecutive games against the Tide, Crimson Tide, up until Saban arrived. And from that point on, Auburn has won, on occasion, a game. You know, like the last time was in 19. They won in 17. They won in 13. And then when was Cam Newton's year? And then they won in 2010. They won 28. That's when Newton and Auburn came from behind.
Yeah, it was somewhere between the Florida, around the Florida championships and between, maybe they're between Alabama
2010.
Yeah, between
28,
right
27.
after Colt got hurt against Bama.
Yeah.
And that little end of the decade run, yeah.
All right, so Sam Pittman, Arkansas football coach, on Texas and Oklahoma entering the SEC. And Sam Pittman seems to be a guy who'd be kind of fun to sit down with and have a conversation. The state of Arkansas is ecstatic about the ability to play Texas and OU, bringing two storied programs into the SEC. I'm excited. I'm from Oklahoma, grew up a Sooner fan. Will be great deal, especially for Texas, because of the old Southwest Conference.
So 2011 for Cam and the Tigers when they won that national title. So 2 years after Colton, Texas lost to Alabama, and the whole world flipped basically after that. College football's never been the same since that 2009 title game. But I think all the quotes that I've seen around Oklahoma and Texas, I don't really know what people were expecting, but every single one of them has been positive. I don't think I've seen a one that has been like, oh, they're in trouble, or they're not ready for this. I mean, I saw a couple of players who were asked questions, and they know the deal. They know that they're being asked to give a soundbite, and the more controversial, the better for the folks who are asking the questions. But I think the players have been smart, and they're just honestly giving their real opinions that, yeah, it's great for the SEC. What are we talking about here? Like, there's no downside.
No.
What is the downside? There's none. There's a zero downside to this entire move. And if you think the downside is, well, Texas is going to roll in and they're going to, plop down in the main chair, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. They're too smart to do that right out of the get-go anyways, okay? They're way too smart for that. But two, they know they're not in the same room anymore. Like, that's not a room they walk into and they're just head and shoulders above everybody. In fact, they're looking around for the first time in a really long time, maybe the first time ever in their history, at a room where they're eye to eye with 5 or more, programs in so many ways. Maybe not financially, but even those programs are closer to them than any ones they've been playing with here recently. So, yeah, I think the whole, I think there's no drama here for Oklahoma and Texas moving to the SEC. It's great. It's exciting for players. They get to play these two programs they might not otherwise get to play. For coaches, hey, now I get to go up against Brent Venables and Steve Sarkisian and 2 more programs from different parts of the country that, are just going to add a whole lot of spice and fun and competitiveness to the conference. So there's no loss here in my mind, and I think everybody's echoing that by saying how excited they are and how it's going to be a great move for the SEC.
It is going to make a conference that has been elite at the top, and I use that word, but they have been. The numbers of national championships are obvious.
If they haven't been elite, then there's no elite. I mean, that's the elite.
What they now bring to the conference is it makes it even deeper, because Texas and OU have their history, no matter the sporadic part of what Texas has dealt with for a decade. Everybody goes through that. Oklahoma last year was, who knows, maybe a one-off or maybe a trend, but it does actually. And you wonder if you're Mississippi State, if you're Vanderbilt, South Carolina's trying to get involved in this. Missouri, what are they? Someone's going to have to drop, or maybe it's one of them or both of them, but it'll be fun to kind of watch to see how that pecking order is after a year or two with them in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, you're adding 11 national titles, 7 from OU, 4 from Texas. You're adding, I think it's like 9 Heisman winners, 7 of them from Oklahoma and 2 of them from Texas. Not to mention countless conference titles and All-Americans. I mean, that's going to be great for all involved, financially, of course, but competition-wise. And I know that, it's a bummer for the Big 12, but I didn't expect SEC Media Days to see a lot of, they don't know what they're in for.
Yeah.
And I think that's been level-headed responses, and that's good, because that's the way it should be, because there is a reason to celebrate here.
Jacob Super Chat, thank you very much. The question: for Boise State to make a New Year's 6 appearance, do they have to beat UCF and Washington, or can they drop a game? Also, Boise plays Memphis in Week 4.
I think if they if they beat Washington and win all, or if they lose to Washington and win all the rest, or if they, I think
doesn't depend on what UCF does and where they are.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of room for error, but there's a lot of schools. There's only about 20 that have a little bit of room for error, if that many. But I would think Boise State needs to do everything they can to almost be like blemish free.
I'm going to say they got to be unbeaten, buddy. I mean, just to from my point of view, I mean, you look at the teams that have made it, like your Cincinnati's. That's an unbeaten team. I don't think that you can really afford, even if it is a name team on the other side of it. Like, I'm not going to say it's impossible. If you lost to Washington in a close game, then you could still get in, but no way with 2 losses. Yeah. 0 way with 2 losses. So, yeah, at minimum, you have to split those games. And even still, I think with 1 loss, it might – well, it would depend on the rest of the country and what's going on there. Like, is there a juggernaut number 2 team in the SEC or what? And look, you know what the great part about this is? That won't matter in the new playoff. Won't matter. Yeah. They'll get in even if they lost a game. They'll get in maybe even if they lost 2 games as long as they handle their business. And so for all of the detractors of an expanded playoff, and there's reasons to like both sides of the coin, but for those who are in favor of the playoff, I think that's one reason why is like Boise doesn't have to be absolutely perfect or teams like them to find themselves a seat at the table. But yeah, they can't really afford to lose more than 1 game, to answer your question. And even then, I think a lot of that will depend on, what else is going on, because a 1-loss Alabama still would have a better case most likely than a undefeated Boise State, right?
I'm not so sure that
I don't know that for sure, but most likely, yeah.
I think a 2-loss Alabama or one of those teams will have that chance, or maybe a Michigan or Ohio State. That's just facts.
Go unbeaten, and then don't worry about it. But 1 loss at most,
So you think run the table, Paul?
I think run the table is going to – run the table would put them in probably the top 8 in the country, 7 or 8. I mean, if they're 12-0, they're going to be –
this year.
Yeah, this year. If they run the table, then they're going to be one of the 12 teams that goes to a New Year's Six bowl. But,
okay.
If they lose a game, then that's just going to be the excuse to keep them 13th.
You don't want to give anybody on the committee or the ones who select the bowls a reason to say no.
Is the question was New Year's Six bowl?
New Year's Six bowl.
Oh God, I'm sitting there thinking about playoffs. So I was even with the 1 loss, I'm sitting there going like they have no chance of a playoff at 1 loss. I mean,
they may not have it if they run the table.
Right? No. So like I was trying to be super generous there, but to make the New Year's Six, I mean, they can lose a game and absolutely still be in the New Year's Six. 2 would probably be pushing it. I don't know like the history of everybody's records involved like over the last several years of how many 2-loss teams there were that are of a similar position, but you wouldn't want to drop more than 1, I wouldn't think.
Chris on the super chat, then we need to break. Guys, the Pac-12 being unable to find a television partner is horrible for the league's perception. The damage to the school's brands only gets worse as this drags on. Schools will jump ship soon.
Yeah, but I don't know.
But we've heard that. And, Chris, thank you for the super chat. We always appreciate it. You do a lot of those with us, and thank you to anybody that does. But, I mean, if it's lingered up to this point, what's the difference in waiting another month? Is it because you want to see what the deal is, or is it because it was nice to have somebody flirting with you and you kind of like the attention, but in the end you don't want to go anywhere? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I just know that I can't wait for it to get to the end game so everybody can maybe move on and focus on football.
I'm still stuck on this Group of 6 question because Tulane lost 2 games last year. So you could lose 2 games as Boise State.
Well, the Group of 5 has a place at the table.
Right. Yeah, so like that gives them more wiggle room than like if you're just an independent trying to get one of those last spots. So you could lose 2 games at Boise because Tulane did that last year. Fresno State back in 18-19, but most teams in that position have been 0 or 1-loss teams. So let's stick with the lose 1 mulligan, and then after that you're kind of playing with fire.
If they beat Washington and UCF, then they can probably blow a tire against somebody, right?
That depends on who.
Are we talking about are we talking about a puncture that's easily replaceable, or are we talking about like rip the tire apart?
The one you had. The one I had to get a new tire.
Well, so did I.
Oh, okay.
So, if they do that, then no, they're not in. So, I mean, thanks for the question. It's interesting to bog down in the records. But, I wouldn't want to risk more than 1 loss, although Tulane, 2 losses last year. Troy, UTSA, we're all right there in that mix with 2 losses. But, 1's kind of the feel-safe zone. Anything less and you're in trouble. But to that question, I don't believe anybody's getting ready to jump ship. I feel like if you've waited this long, why would you now do that? And I understand 6 months ago you can rewind this show and there's probably there's somebody getting ready to jump ship soon, and guess what? Nobody's jumped ship, and a deal back then seemed close, and it clearly wasn't close. So I do think there's got to be a little bit of like tapping of the feet, like, all right, like, what does close mean? Like, I would almost feel like, are we kind of getting lied to or drug along here? But I also don't know what they know behind the scenes, right? So from the outsider's perspective, it might seem like they're getting toyed with, and George Kliavkoff's just, dangling this carrot in front of them that's not going to lead them anywhere good. But they've come this far, so why now at the 99th hour, or whatever, the deadline's here, and not really there's a deadline, but it feels that way. You're not going to jump at this point after all of the time you spent waiting and all of that. I do wonder, like, how much longer you can go before that becomes a legitimate concern. I just don't worry about that right this very moment. Those teams saying, all right, that's it, we can't do it anymore. I feel like there's still some more waiting to go. That's just my opinion. And I don't think that anybody's going to, cut ahead and be like, we got to go to the Big 12 now. I don't think that that's so secure of a future that it makes sense to bolt after waiting this long. That's just my perspective.
We will hear from Mark Ziegler and what happened with the Mountain West Conference in San Diego State and what else he's learned, if anything, about they got together and worked it out earlier this week. The conference did. San Diego State is locked back in until they're not. But they also will get the $6.6 million they are supposed to get because there's no exit fee for that to go up against.
I do think for the Pac-12, their brand could recoup a lot of that damage from the offseason and however damaged you think that they are by going and having a great year on the gridiron. And they certainly seem to have a couple teams that are playoff caliber. They have a boatload of quarterbacks that could be in the Heisman discussion, including the reigning winner, who's looking to be the first guy and the only guy since Archie Griffin to win back-to-back. So there will be a lot of eyes on Caleb Williams and SoCal. So I think they've got some interesting storylines. I mean, I'm not like obsessed with everything quarterback there, but there are a lot of interesting stories, and there are enough to make this season, especially as we preview it, really interesting until we see like the warts and all of that come up. So I think they could actually just go out and have a great year, maybe win another Heisman, and even if it's the team that's leaving, who cares? It's still going to be the Pac-12 that's getting the benefit of that in the moment, and maybe even have a playoff team. And depending on how that deal looks, I mean, who's to say it's going to look all that bad? But yes, PR-wise, there's no debating that they've suffered some hits, but I don't think they're hits that they can't recover from. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this is, in the moment it sucks and it looks ugly, but the right TV deal or the right run by a certain team, and they could be all the rage, and everybody could be talking about the on-the-field stuff and not give two what's about the cable deal that's on the table.
Look, if especially like say it's Oregon, say Bo Nix gets Oregon just on fire, and Oregon and USC are playing for the conference title, and Oregon wins it and it's in the playoff, like you're gonna forget like, oh, are they going to be on Fox next year or not?
Right,
absolutely. Yeah. And I can't wait for those moments when we're worried about wins and losses rather than that. But I don't think that's ever going to stop. No matter what the Pac-12 eventually does. We have to break. Go ahead.
It's not ever going to stop until there's a deal. You're absolutely right. And I don't think that there's zero reason for concern, but I just think as far as like the public perception, I think that we're talking about a very niche group of people that are following it this closely. And we all are entertained by it, but I think for like the overwhelming majority of folks out there, it's not something that's primarily on their radar, right? And that if you were to ask them about the Pac-12, I don't know that the first thing they think of is college realignment and the throes of what they've gone through these last few months. So that's easily repairable by just going out and winning, because winning cures everything, no matter what the story really is most of the time.
When we come back, a lot of news on Northwestern and all the lawsuits. There were press conferences today. We'll hear from some of the former players involved in that. Also, the chat room is rolling along. And I keep getting asked about what are your thoughts about what Michael Wilbon said about Brent Venables. We'll get to that if you want, and we will. Venables was asked about how they rebuilt at Oklahoma, and he mentioned Deion Sanders. I saw a quote somebody sent me that Deion fired back at Venables, and I thought Deion said he didn't do that it wasn't his quote. Michael Wilbon defending Deion, all of that in the next segment and more, and this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. How crazy is this? 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport totals values of $4,000 plus 1.9% financing for 72 months. How crazy is that? Or the 2023 Jeep Compass, get 10% below MSRP. That's right, these deals are hot just like our summer days in Texas. Remember, first responders get another $500 in savings, so come find the Jeep that's right for you and save big at Alan Samuels in Waco. Make this Vista Summer Sales Event at Allen Samuels during the hot days of summer. And this month in July, get legendary 2023 Dodge Chargers or Challengers, SXT, GT, or RT models. Your choice with total values up to $2,000. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place for you to shop for your next Dodge. Shop the greatest selection in Central Texas and find the hot rod for you. Come by and visit the showroom at Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. See the demons and scat packs they have loaded the sales floor with. They won't last long, as you truly have the last call models of legendary muscle cars only at Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat in Waco, Loop 340 east of 84.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
So let's uncover this back and forth between Michael Wilbon, ESPN, Brent Venables, Oklahoma, and Deion Sanders saying, in a second, we'll get to what he said. Like, wait a minute, I didn't say that, but Brent Venables was asked in an interview at Big 12 Media Days about Oklahoma and how they were rebuilding the roster and on and on and on. And he basically said that he wasn't like Deion. He did not give guys pink slips. He gave them 12 months, but there were things that he had to root out of the program, but wanted to give it time. But he didn't need to mention Colorado. He surely didn't need to mention Deion unless Deion's name was brought up in the question, and I never saw that part. And really, it is unique. Deion is incredibly unique, and what he's doing is unique, but that's who he's always been. So I didn't understand why Venables wanted to go down that road, but was he being vicious? No. So Michael Wilbon, Craig, you can read the quote, Michael Wilbon, on what he said about Brent Venables, who he thought was taking a direct pot shot, and maybe he was at Colorado's Deion Sanders.
All right, so to give a little more clarity on what Venables said, he said when he arrived, they weren't living right off the field. They needed a culture change. They needed to reset the standard and what the expectations were. He gave everybody a year. He said, I wasn't like Deion. I gave guys 12 months of grace to figure it out. And the basic three things were go to class, live right off the field, and when you show up at the facilities, show up with respect and appreciation for the opportunity. If you go 0 for 3 for 12 months, you need a fresh start. So we helped 21 guys, give or take, find a fresh start. So that is Brent Venables. I agree. He should not have said anything about Deion.
I agree.
He should not have said anything about Deion in particular, but he did. And then he also had another interview later on where he got into it, and he said he challenged the guys. He said, again, I wasn't like Deion that gave guys a bunch of pink slips. I gave guys 12 months of grace. And then he said again the 0 for 3, 12 months. And so he just repeated himself, with a different outlet. So I don't know which version, both basically saying the same thing, got around the horn. But that's where Wilbon and company got in on it, and he said it makes him look like a sanctimonious, loudmouth, know-it-all college football coach who doesn't like Deion, Wilbon said about Venables. So let me talk about who I do and don't like. Deion is way out there like Saturn's rings with what he's doing with his approach. I'm going to root for him so hard you would think his last name's Wilbon to beat all these loudmouth, sanctimonious, self-righteous college football coaches who dislike Deion for whatever reasons. I have my own suspicions. He'd better win, though, because Deion is way out there, but I'm rooting for him hard. I may go and buy season tickets at Colorado to go and sit in the stands and root for Deion to beat people like the loudmouth, sanctimonious Venables.
What in the hell got into your pants, Wilbon? God, I mean, you have a right to root for somebody, but I don't think what Venables said was enough for you to come talk to him like some sanctimonious loudmouth. But Michael Wilbon's got a massive, massive audience, as does Deion. So Deion then, when all of this was going around on Twitter, this was back yesterday. He said, because there was a quote out there about Deion. That was Deion in quotes. And Deion said, will someone please help me track down who put the lie out that was a response to the latest coach's attack on CU Bus football? Please help me identify the liar. God bless. So what he was mad about wasn't even bringing whatever he says in private about Brent or whatever he says in the future, but somebody put out quotes that was Deion talking about Brent Venables. And so Deion's trying to tie up that loose end. So my goodness, it goes in every direction.
Somebody put out a fake quote. It had like a Ferrari image on it, and it was it had a graphic, and it went around on social media, and it was an entirely fake quote. So that's what he's talking about. He's asking for, because it can get very confusing bouncing around from person to person. Deion was saying, track down who made that original fake tweet. That's what he was trying to get to. And so he said, please read this slowly. I've never responded to any of these great that choose to target me or our program at Colorado. If it were truly me, I would have referenced a Lamborghini, not the image had a Ferrari pretending to be Deion. So he's setting the record straight that if he had made that quote, it would have had a Lamborghini attached to it. But he's saying he didn't respond in any way. Please help me identify the liar. God bless. So Deion's trying to track down who did that.
All right, it's interesting because of the people involved. Venables, in my opinion, could have just not left out a program. Maybe he didn't mean it, but the bottom line, he did say it, and so some of the criticism will come with that.
The other thing, though, and this is where it's also going to tie up Brent Venables, by invoking Deion's name, then he is comparing what Deion did to what he did. Well, then if you do that, then if you have to take it one step further, you have to compare what he inherited to what Deion inherited. He inherited a team, albeit not the same players, because Caleb Williams in a cast of thousands, it felt like, had left the program, but he walked into Oklahoma, who was 11-2 in a perennial conference power.
Their heart was just fine. Yeah, it was pumping perfectly.
Yeah. Deion walked into a program that was on life support and 1-11 and was so far away from their glory days. So you can't even begin to take the same tactics with those two programs. It'd be almost silly to, if you're Brent Venables, to send everybody out of the room. So he just shouldn't have said Deion's name, and then this would be fine. So I that's the mistake he made, and his intent we'll never know.
Still don't know if Deion's name was brought up in the question. I could never find the question to Venables responding to it. And so maybe that was also there. But I'm not going to defend Venables on it. He shouldn't have brought up Deion. Our Grawl, to me, the fact that Deion is being talked about means he's doing his job. Nobody here would be talking about Colorado otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely not. I don't think we've talked about Colorado much other than maybe when Mel Tucker left, or Steven Montez is the guy I always referred to, and he hadn't played for like 7 years at this point. So yeah, they've been completely off the radar, and Deion's made them, a main event talking point once again. And I did track down apparently what the anonymous graphic was. It had the picture of the Lambo or whatever, and it said, "To the gentleman from Oklahoma, it's coach to you." And then people took that as it was Deion saying that, and it was not Deion. So he was setting the record straight there. But yeah, this all lies on Venables' shoulders. I mean, he shouldn't have brought up Deion specifically. And you could say, well, it was a question. Well, that means at least two people asked the same question referencing Deion. So I don't know that happened. I think Venables just chose to bring him up or invoke him, and if not, would love that record set straight as well. But that's the way that it appears based on the fact that he said kind of the same thing a couple of times and mentioned him both times. So just not a good, smart move by Brent to bring up someone else to compare to his situation, because they are two very different situations, not at all alike. You're talking about programs that are like recent history, like one's way up here and one's like right over here. I mean, not even close. So very much a different situation that Brent walked into versus what Deion walked into. I think this is just your usual college football drama. There's not really any big blow up at the end of this, unless they meet in a bowl game or something. This will probably get brought back up, but I'm sure they'll have a little text or phone conversation and smooth it out, because I do think there was a lot kind of lost in translation here. And I also think that it was just poor word choice, and not really an indictment on Deion the man per se, or anything that should last much longer. I think Wilbon's response was way over the top, and I don't know if that was for TV or not, but I have my suspicions, like he has his suspicions as to why he's so adamant about it. So that's a response. Well, I mean, he was awfully strong in his words towards Venables. That's for sure.
Daniel's saying, does anyone think Wilbon was inferring racism on Venables' comments? Some do.
I don't know that he was yeah, I mean, he was to some extent, yes. I don't know if he was outright. I need to read the quote again, but there's definitely he's referencing race, yes, very much so in that quote, in a roundabout way or direct way, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I can't put words in Wilbon's mouth or what intent was on Brent Venables' part, but Deion is a person who, from the time he was in college till now, since the world has known about Deion Sanders, has been polarizing. And I'll just tell you, if you were a Cowboys fan and he was on the 49ers, you hated his guts, and then you woke up one morning and he was in Dallas slapping backs with Jerry Jones, you're like, I've always loved that guy. That's
kind of like fans with coaches when they come and go.
That's the nature of Deion. Yep. And so I would just recommend sit back and enjoy the ride, and don't hate on Deion, because most of what he does won't affect you at all. And yeah, it's different, but different is good sometimes.
No, I like his. I've always not been offended by his style. When he was with the Cowboys, I wasn't real thrilled with that, because I am a Washington fan, but he's as good as anyone who's ever played the game, and he's trying to do it his way with Colorado.
Yeah, and that was like 30 years ago, too. Yeah. That Super Bowl was a long time ago, so I don't – there's no pro athlete that still has any sort of a – I have an axe to grind with any athlete at this point. I think Deion played with like 6 teams after that Cowboys run, too, including the Redskins. But – yeah, I to the point about Wilbon's quote about like the race part, I do think that at the very end he kind of infers that when he says, I'm going to root for him so hard, blah, 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 to beat all these loudmouth, sanctimonious, self-righteous college football coaches who dislike Deion. For whatever reasons, I have my own suspicions. And I do think that you could take that as maybe a shot in that realm, but nothing, nothing bad on Wilbon's part either. That's like over the top in that way whatsoever. But you could certainly parse that from his comments And also, I think you could take that as just he's really rooting for Deion to do well because he is the anti-establishment guy to up in the status quo and make more people watch college football that might not otherwise watch it because they're bored of seeing Brent Venables and Dabo and Nick Saban and all the same types of folks. And so I think there is an element of that as well. But yeah, this is very much an off-season story. I bet Brent and Deion would dap each other up if they walked into the same room here pretty soon, and we'll probably smooth things over. I don't think this will be anything that lingers.
Speaking of Michael Wilbon, he went to school at Northwestern. Here are a rapid fire, some tweets. Adam Rittenberg, who we had on, remember, at the end of last week, has done a great job covering this story. Well, Ben Crump, the attorney, representing now 15, maybe more, former Northwestern athletes. They had a press conference today. Northwestern had their investigation. You can read along as we go. Crump saying that, why didn't any of these players say something? Some of them did try to say something, and they were retaliated against. Notes others were frightened to come forward. Attorney Steve Levin referenced Northwestern's own investigation. Northwestern has investigated itself, found that these acts have occurred, that they were widespread, and they were also long-standing. Former running back Warren Long, sexual violence and sexual assault was rampant. Former quarterback Lloyd Yates, we were physically and emotionally beaten down, and some players have contemplated suicide as a result. Says it was especially difficult for players of color, and then also mentioned the trauma of running. It's something where you say, that's not going to happen to me. You're going to fight back, and when it happens, it's uncontrollable. You're dominated by the culture. Now, these are guys who got in front of the press today, along with their attorneys, to put out their story, and that doesn't mean you have to believe in everything they've said, but those are the quotes, at least some of them. There were dozens of them, but from today.
Yeah, this is a really, if this is all true, and I have no reason to believe that you would have it out for Pat Fitzgerald so badly or Northwestern so badly that you would come together and conspire to make all this up. So whatever truth is in there, and I think you've got to really look at, what the university even found was going on and knows was going on. So this is really, really bad. It's going to sound worse and worse as more details come out. And it also falls in line with, when you ask why victims of sexual assault don't say something, it's really hard. And then when they do and they get shut down like they do, it gets worse and worse and worse for them. It is classic behavior of what happens when it's a very scary, awful thing that happens to you. It's almost as scary and awful to try to tell somebody about it, and then it gets even worse when you're not believed or you're not supported, and that's why these awful cycles continue of, it goes and goes and goes. People don't know the reporting because they're scared to do it. It's really bad. If you don't know the statistics on it, I suggest you read about it because it is a problem for humankind that we have not got a handle on yet. And I remember, I was sitting in the Sam. I didn't know any stuff like this, that things were this bad. I was sitting in the Sam Ukawachu trial, listening to the prosecuting attorney give actual stats, and then they had a witness on the stand that said, "This is how many people are. This is how many women are. This is how many men are." And I was like, "Are you serious?" I thought in my mind it was one out of every 200 people, and it's one out of every 7 people has gone through this. And I know through sexual assault, right, some kind of trauma this way. And you all know 7 people. It may not be the 7 people sitting in the room, but everybody's, there's somebody that's been through this to one degree or another. And it's a really, really rampant problem that we have in the world. And it needs to be rooted out as best as it can, but these are things that are really tragic to hear from what's happened at Northwestern.
Yeah, there's already been a few layers peeled back. I think there's plenty more to come. The way it sounds like, more lawsuits yet to be filed. You've got to talk about how, there's not only the baseball program that's in the crosshairs along with football, obviously, but softball's in there now as well. They've already obviously made a couple of major coaching moves, and it just feels like we're at the tip of the iceberg. Maybe the worst is over in terms of what's released, you hope, but I don't think the news cycle's stopping anytime soon, unfortunately, for Northwestern folks. Now, if you're looking for a cleansing of, whatever, ill was going on there, then this is a great opportunity. But yeah, I think there's still a lot of the hard part for Northwestern is there's still a lot of that infighting going on, and you don't really know, what to believe. I think in some cases, and like, do you believe everything at face value, or do you treat everything at face value? Like that's the hard part. I think for probably a lot of people who are sort of in the middle of, like, you do need to believe and support, but you also, like, are we just burning it all down without asking any questions too? Like, and that's the real dilemma, I think, for an organization, university, whoever, because that is going to split people. And I think you're seeing that in the responses, that there's very much a split in how all this is unfolding. And yeah, it's ugly. I hate it for those who were affected, hurt in any type of negative way. I hope they get their semblance of justice when all is said and done. And for anybody that's out there maybe embellishing, lying, adding fuel to the fire that doesn't need to be added, then, I hope they get their comeuppance as well. I just, in the end, hope that the truth comes out and Northwestern's better for it, but it's an ugly story, no doubt about it.
Sean D., could Northwestern face NCAA punishment if these allegations turn out to be true? The Baylor example is there. No matter what you thought about that, no matter what the truth was, no matter what they knew, no matter what Baylor admitted and or said that did not happen, the NCAA reprimanded them. The NCAA gave them some penalties, but not really a lot because most of them had already been done, just like the Tennessee thing, but that was more recruiting, illegal recruiting. But they cannot punish something that's not a part of their jurisdiction.
Yeah, which these aren't stories that are complete carbon copies of one another. So, I mean, we don't know how deep this goes and who all's involved in what angle of each part of the story. So could there potentially been some NCAA violations? Yeah, possibly, but I don't know that, and I don't know how well anybody really knows that just yet. But in terms of could they get in major trouble for the fact that these things were going on, I think it's, to the extent of maybe the way that Baylor was in trouble, which is some lost scholarships and things of that nature. But no, I don't think there's no death penalty coming. I feel very confident in saying that. That's not a concern. And I don't think that, like, they're going to shut down the, like the death penalty or anything along the lines of shutting down athletics or, shuttering programs. That's not going to happen. But it all depends on the details. But based on the Baylor example, then they'll probably have some minor things that occur.
It's also the Penn State example, which they were sued, and a lot of that was taken out of the penalties and or the report against Penn State. When we come back, San Diego State, as the commissioner of the Mountain West Conference said, is now in good standing. They will get their money, the $6.6 million due. They are a part of the conference for at least now. And what does that mean? Mark Ziegler, the San Diego Union Tribune, is next on 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace just off of I-35 on the southern part of Waco is phenomenal. I have been in their MRI machine. It's been 3 or 4 times. And I'm not real thrilled about being in any kind of tight spaces. In fact, there are times I admit that I get claustrophobic and maybe in the middle of the night. So for me to go inside of a tube and then all of a sudden it presses down on you, it can get a little bit tough for me. But the Texan specialists there have been fantastic in allowing me to feel comfortable enough and understanding they're going to take care of me. And it seemed like, 30 minutes or 45 minutes is a long time. And it is. You just got to get focused, and they help you do that. But the bottom line that they're going to do as well is find out what is hurting you. What is it that aches so badly or is so painful you can't sleep or function? They're going to find the images and get it to your doctor through the portal. They'll know the answer to. And even better on top of that is $497 or less is what it will cost every single time. $497, never more, at idealmri.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, that's TexasBeefHouse.com, and joined by Marketing Director Samantha Duvall. Samantha, thanks for your time. There have been numerous holidays, and now it's just straight up the summertime. Your thoughts about some of the specials and ideas you have?
So we still have our hamburger special going on. We're going to continue it through the end of July. When you bundle our 25-pound ground beef bundle, you can get hamburger for as low as $6 a pound. And the same with our 28-pound Wagyu hamburger patties. You can also get those for as low as $6 a pound. All of those come with free shipping in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. We've got a lot of steaks online. People are buying up our brisket. Time to smoke a brisket. Good time to grill out. If you order and use our code STICK'EM10, you can get 10% off your order of $100 or more. And it's all grown right here in White House. We're a family-owned company. It's all pasture-raised. We just enjoy what we get to do.
Family reunion, people going out to the lakes, or people just meeting or going out of town. Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements, with the members excited about what they see. New flooring, locker rooms have been redone, new painting, and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, with a new squat machine that will test your legs and their stamina. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, treadmills, elliptical machines on a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and welcome Nathan Roach. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro the great Britt Cole, plus adult tennis lessons with Blake and Kenna, who are ready to take your game to another level. And the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive next to Hawaiian Falls in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports today in the studio. Levi Caraway, Graham Braunstein, Missouri. Levi Baylor, and then also Jack McKenzie from Harvard. Actually, Baylor.
Harvard of the Brazos.
Harvard of the Brazos, and Craig Smoak, David Smoak, Paul Catalina is about to get us hooked up with Mark Ziegler of the San Diego Union Tribune. As we have said from the beginning, the Mountain West Conference and San Diego State have made peace and started their media days. Pretty good timing. Mark Ziegler, San Diego Union Tribune. We've had him on a handful of times. And Mark, thanks for your time. So is everybody like hunky-dory, kissy, huggy now?
I don't think so. You're not going to get over something like this just in 10 minutes. And we'll see as the season goes on. You start playing games, you see some basketball schedules come out that maybe isn't favorable to San Diego State, and they start to complain. So we'll see how things go. But, it was interesting that the commissioner, Gloria Nevarez, from Mountain West, had her State of the Conference address today. And she said, look, I'm not going to go into details about it, but, we resolved it. And people kept kind of pressing and, her on it. And she wouldn't provide many details. And so I still think there's a little bit of animosity there.
When we had you on the show after they had sent the letter, you described it as it was like a shot in the dark. Does San Diego State feel silly about how this all went down now that they look back on it?
I think if they had to do it over again, the president probably wouldn't have sent a letter and probably would have tried to handle things, behind closed doors. She's been criticized in the past here for not being transparent enough. And maybe she was overreacting to that and tried to be, uber transparent this time. And it backfired a little bit. But yeah, I think both sides probably could have backed off a little bit. I'd like to think the former commissioner, Craig Thompson, real old school guy, been around for years. He probably would have handled this a little bit differently. She's a new commissioner. She's got these other schools that she's going to have to answer to if or when San Diego State leaves. She probably was trying to show a little bit more strength and backbone than maybe Craig Thompson would have felt necessary. And so I think those two things kind of combined to escalate things to a point where they just got out of control and lawyers got involved and they de-escalated it finally yesterday.
So, Mark, in the grand scheme of things, what does this mean as far as any sort of timeline and obligation, and how long is San Diego State locked in now with the Mountain West for those who are going to obviously continue to bring up the Pac-12 and that kind of deal? Is that something that's off the table for a time, or for a while, or is that something that could still, switch at a moment's notice? How does all that kind of set up now with yesterday's decision?
Well, I think it keeps San Diego State in the conference for at least 2 more years. They're already going to be in it for 23-24. We knew that.
Right.
Question was, what happened after that? And to leave the Mountain West, you got to give them 1 year's notice. If you give them a year's notice, it's $17 million. If you give them less than that, it's $34 million. So if the Pac-12 comes calling to San Diego State, later this summer and says, okay, we sorted out our TV deal. We got everybody still in the conference. We want to expand. We want to add you and SMU. We want you to come in 2024. Can you come? San Diego State is probably going to say no at this point because it has been on the record saying we can't afford to pay a $34 million exit fee. 17 was going to be hard enough. And that's what they're looking at now. That was sort of the resolution yesterday. And they've kind of resigned themselves to the fact they're going to be in this conference for 2 more years. Now, could that change? Of course it could. Everything changes in conference realignment. And maybe they come back to the Mountain West and said, tell you what, how about you take 20 or 25 and we call it a day? That could happen as well. But as things stand right now, I don't think the Mountain West is really going to budge on its exit fee. San Diego State's a cash cow for them when it comes to the NCAA tournament. They think they're very good in basketball, will be good again, and should get them more shares. So they want them in the conference for that reason. So I don't see them budging on the exit fee that much. So I think San Diego State, as things stand now, are locked in for 2 more years, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Mark, do you know, or have you been able to get any inclination whatsoever if the Pac-12 said something to San Diego State? Maybe San Diego State jumped the gun. Okay, that looks like that might have happened. But was there a promise? Was there anything that would have put them in a position where they were going to jump the gun?
I don't think so. I know they've had conversations, regular conversations, but I think the Pac-12 has been pretty I think they've been pretty honest with them and shown interest. But, there's no way that a commissioner can make that kind of promise. A commissioner does not extend, expansion invitations. I think a lot of the public misses that. The membership does. And if you don't know who's in your membership, you don't know who's going to be in your conference, how can they extend expansion, make expansion promises? I mean, we don't know if Colorado and Arizona State, Utah might jump. Oregon and Washington clearly don't want to be in this conference anymore. I think Stanford and Cal would like out too. So you don't know who's still in it. And so I don't think anything was said. I think maybe the president might have misinterpreted some of the nuances of some of the game and advances and got a little bit over her skis on this. But I don't think – I know the athletic director for sure. I mean, he was very, very measured, has been measured all along. And they're very hopeful, but I don't think anything was said or promised. And I think, they just bumped upon this deadline that they never expected in a million years when this started last year would be a factor, and suddenly it was. and they have to stay.
Mark, based on what you just said, does the feeling that you have is that the Pac-12 is a marriage of convenience at this point?
Well, I think they look, San Diego State has always wanted to get in the Pac-12. This doesn't go back 2 years or 5 years. This goes back like 5 decades. We're a city that is actually a pretty large metropolitan area stuck into the corner of the United States that I think a lot of people forget about, has no real sports history, has never really won anything. The Padres have never won a championship. The Chargers never won a championship. Teams leave here, Chargers, Clippers, Rockets, you go on down the line. And so I think there's a little bit of inferiority complex, and people want to be in a power conference just to sort of validate their existence. And so there's been that pushing this for a long time. And so, I don't know if San Diego State, marriage of convenience, maybe, but I just think that the Pac-12 is going to probably need more schools for inventory purposes, and San Diego State's kind of the best option out there. There's not a whole lot of good options out there. They've all been plucked up by the Big 12 or other conferences, and I think San Diego State's sort of the best team still standing out there. And they got to take somebody. They're in Southern California, and they have a good basketball team, so why not?
Fortunately for the Aztecs, they don't have to wonder about the answer to this question, but hypothetically, because let's say things had gone differently and the Mountain West said, you know what, no, we're not going to take you back. What would have happened, do you think, with San Diego State?
Well, they would have just sued, and I think they would have gotten back in anyway. And that's what, going back to your very first question, is this over? They're all singing Kumbaya. I mean, look, clearly San Diego State has laid its cards on the table. It doesn't want to be in this conference. And I don't think a lot of other conferences given the choice, a lot of the teams the conference given a choice would want to be in it either, just because of the money and the financial stakes. But they're not out there saying that. San Diego State is saying that. And so, I think that's where the animosity is going to be going forward. And, they just have to wait and see. San Diego State is sort of just a spectator in this entire endeavor. I mean, they have no control over it. It's the Pac-12, their TV deal, their TV partners, and whether they can get something done. And only after that, maybe does San Diego State have a chance of changing conferences. But they just have to sit on the sideline and watch and hope.
Do you feel it? I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but is it almost like they're twisting in the wind?
Yeah. I mean, I think you could say that. I mean, people got, I think one of the mistakes maybe the president made, we got to a week after they went to the championship game, or less than a week, the Saturday after they were in the national championship game, they had a big celebration in the football stadium for the team. And they brought the team in, and, the mayor was there, and the director of the county board of supervisors was there, and keys of the city and proclamations and speeches, and the president got up there and said, "Hey, who knows? Pretty soon we may be in a different place." And clearly referencing conference realignment, and everyone cheered and went crazy, and and so I think there's been so much expectation of this happening that when it doesn't happen, there is this feeling that you're twisting in the wind. But whoever thought that we'd be sitting here in the middle of July, toward the end of July 2023, talking about the Pac-12 not knowing who its TV partners are and whether it's going to have a full slate of 10 teams left. I mean, no one did. And so in that respect, San Diego State is just hanging out there and waiting to see what happens.
One football question for you, because there are media days and all of that's still going on as well, although this is, obviously been a very interesting story, but did see where in the Mountain West preseason voting, San Diego State gets the one first place vote, 4th overall behind Boise, who seems to be the overwhelming favorite. Air Force, Fresno State also receiving some first place votes. Just your thoughts on that pecking order and where San Diego State sits at number 4 and the Mountain West race as it arrives upon us here?
I think the Mountain West might have a little bit more depth at the top than it has in the last few years. I think, all those teams you mentioned are pretty good. UNLV, continues to improve. We'll see how they do. But, it's going to be really hard for San Diego State this year because their schedule, it's not so much the teams in the schedule, it's the timing of it. Right out of the gate, they're going to have to play an Ohio team that's pretty good. They could beat, they played in the bowl game a few years ago and got smoked by them. Then they got to play UCLA. They're going to Oregon State, which is going to be a tough road trip for them. They open the conference against Boise. Then they got to play at Air Force, a team that beat them last year. And so, they could be looking for their first FBS win, 6 weeks into the season, if all things don't go well. And that could really, really, then there's pressure on Brady Hoke, the coach. So, I think they're going to have a struggle this season. They lost some players in the transfer portal. I think they got their work cut out for them. This is not a schedule where you can take some younger guys, grow them into roles, and get a nice record, build some confidence, and then go take your shot against the better opponents. They get them right off the bat, and I think that could hurt them a little bit. So I think that's probably a fair place to put them, particularly with those first two conference games. I mean, they could be 0-2 very easily.
Mark, looking ahead, let's say, and it looks like it's just inevitable that they are a part of the Pac-12, with UCLA and USC leaving, who would be their rival within the Pac-12 that might be one now that I just don't know of?
Well, that's really interesting to ask that. San Diego State is one of the few teams in the country. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of teams at all different levels, right? Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA schools, JCs even. That doesn't have a natural rival. It doesn't. I mean, the closest thing to a rival is BYU, except for BYU, San Diego State's not its rival. Utah is. And they've tried to build a rivalry in football with Fresno State, really hasn't taken. There was a little bit of a rivalry with UNLV in basketball for a few years, but then San Diego State's won like 20 of the last 22 against UNLV, and that kind of fizzled out. They don't have a rival, and they never really had one in the Pac-12 because USC and UCLA just won't play them in football and basketball, because why would they? And it's weird that they're going to play UCLA this year, but there is no rival. And so that's kind of the weird thing for this school. It's kind of been hanging out here in the corner of the country, just kind of building and growing and getting a lot better. And academically, it's as good as it's as much improvement as there's been athletically in football and then particularly in men's basketball, which is the obvious story. There's been parallel improvement academically. It's a very tough academic school to get into now. And is one of the most popular in California. They have like 100,000 applications. People want to come out here and study. And so it's been quietly growing, but it's been growing on its own, and there is no rival. And so I think they just be happy to be in the Pac-12 and play Pac-12 opponents and say they're in a quote-unquote power conference and puff their chest out. But I think that would be the extent of it.
Good stuff, Mark. Thank you for joining us on a busy day with the conference media days and also the day after the Mountain West announcement. Thanks for your time. Good luck moving forward. We'll hope to have you on again later in the year.
Yeah, anytime. Love your show. We'll talk to you soon.
Mark Ziegler, San Diego Union Tribune. Craig, you asked that question about, so what if the conference would have said, nope? Yeah, then they probably go to court and they end up being a part of the conference, and it just makes a messy deal even worse.
Yeah, I mean, worth asking, though. And, we've had somebody before ask, will they go independent? And that leaned into just what options they might have. But, yeah, that legal route would be the most likely, and that would have been very interesting to see how that would have gone. And probably a lot of just millions wasted on both sides to probably come to a conclusion pretty similar to the one they came to. So I think that they each did the right thing and just said, let's pretend like this never happened, even though we're not going to. It's like when your girl promised, she's like, oh, no, yeah, I'm cool. Like, it's over. I won't bring this back up, or I've forgotten about it. It's like, damn well she hadn't forgotten about that. It will be brought up at some point. That's how this is in my mind. And, until then, it'll be all hunky-dory, but there's some underlying tension for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there was no other thing. And, look, I think when you talk about going independent, it's only now, if you decide to go independent, it's only going to be out of extreme necessity. If BYU, who's a school that, has a lot of revenue, they have a huge fan base, if they are for years trying to not be independent, it tells you about that. Like, Notre Dame can do it because they're Notre Dame. So you have to take them out of the equation. Army and Navy are doing it because they're Army and Navy. But if somebody called up and asked Army and Navy, like, would you, because Air Force is in the Mountain West.
Liberty just joined a conference.
Yeah, Liberty just joined a conference. So if somebody called up and said, we'd like Army and Navy in the league, I'm sure they would jump at the chance. So, because again, it would probably be better for them recruiting wise overall anyway. But yeah, there's not going to be the whole let's go independent and see what happens thing. Look, the only school I could think would even try to pull it off in the past would have been Texas, and look what they're doing. They're going to the SEC. Independence is just not a thing that you can do, and especially if you're San Diego State, it would be something that you were forced to do.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, I mean, there's even with them people trying to force them almost into a situation where they have to eventually join one as well. So, that remains a story that doesn't have any sort of a firm end date whatsoever or ticking clock, but one that's worth monitoring because they're at least toying with the idea to some extent. Like it's at least something that Notre Dame has to look into. And, for them, maybe they're just so special that it's not something that ever becomes a necessity. But it does seem like there's, always constant chatter about that. But they are alone on an island in that way. And San Diego State can't really afford to be flipping in the wind all by their lonesome. So, if this would have ended with them in a Pac-12 invite, that would have been the more ideal scenario. Maybe that's what eventually happens in the next couple of years. But for right now, I think this has worked out well for all parties involved. It could have been way messier, and they decided to go ahead and clean up while they still could, and I think that's the right move.
I don't know what you guys said about Navy, but everyone mentioned that they're a part of the American Conference.
Oh, that's right. Sorry about that. That's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Army is independent. Yeah.
Army's independent.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, the only independents now with Brigham Young now
so to
part
your
of
point,
the Big 12,
Navy's
Army,
in the conference. Yeah.
Notre Dame, UConn, and UMass. Those right now are the ones that
and what's
are
UConn trying
independent.
to do?
Well,
They're
they just
trying to join a
restarted
conference,
not too long ago their football program.
Yeah.
And they're trying to, if they could get in the Big 12 outside of the complaints of travel and whatnot, they'd probably want to do that. Absolutely.
I always wished back in the day, and I know, Paul, you and I discussed this, and it was never going to happen, but just because I think it would be cool is if you could be in a conference with Army, Navy, and Air Force. I just think that would be cool. I know that it's not going to happen. Well, you never know. But I just always thought the road trips would have been great to West Point, to Annapolis, and God almighty, Colorado Springs and those views.
When the Big 12 was desperate back in the day, I thought, who's going to say no to that? Who's going to say no to that?
You would have one of the most watched games in college football at least once a year with Army-Navy.
Well,
right?
And then you would also have...
Unless the Big 12 would screw up that rivalry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're one's in the north and one's in the south.
Yeah,
they
can't play.
Yeah, no. But no, I think it's just... To me, it would be cool, but it's just those schools are so different in the players that they have to recruit. And they almost got their, golden ticket a couple years ago when it was, they can, if they are legitimate NFL prospects, they can defer their service and do the reserves and things like that. And then that went away, except for the guys who are grandfathered in who, like Andre Carter, could do that, but now they're back to where they were, status quo. So you're not going to get the same kind of players, because they're not going to have the same opportunities available to them. And again, the reason I just want them to be able to play big time college football is at those three schools, Air Force, Army, and Navy. You are making you are answering a calling more than most places are. So would like to just see them have that. Kind of chances while they're in school because they're doing something big on the way out.
All right, I want to get to something because we're going to be loaded up the rest of the way. Jim Williams will join us. His thoughts about even back last week with the ACC and the CW. What does it mean? Even the story that the Pac-12 won't have at least on Friday. The media deal announced and some other things going on with ESPN and just television in general with sports. But there was a couple of weeks ago, I saw someone jump into the forums and started to ask about, had we read the story involving the two-time defending champion Georgia Bulldogs? It was in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Paul, that evening, after it was mentioned, you contacted our guy that covers Georgia, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. He didn't write the story. But I think it was almost like he felt like the story he didn't say that, but you could tell he didn't want to have anything to do with it. Today, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on the story involving Georgia and a lot of activity with players in the campus and arrest or taking care of players, found no instances of fabrications in the story as the university's letter had alleged. The Atlanta Journal, though, is providing issued corrections to its recent investigation to Georgia, and the corrections were issued in response to a 9-page letter sent a week ago by Georgia attorney Michael Raber. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution declined the letter's demand for the article to be retracted. So what are we having here?
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. Basically, what you're looking at is that a bunch of people from Georgia demanded a retraction because they said there were some fabrications and errors. AJC said there's no need for a retraction because they didn't find any instances of fabrication. They didn't feel that there was anybody that just violated, the ethics by making up stuff. However, they did find that one of the investigative reporters, who was the author of the article, violated the organization's journalistic standards, and he's since been fired. Alan Judd is his name. They also found multiple aspects of the story that did not meet its own standards. They had a couple of excerpts that got further into details of it. Said they could not substantiate one of the article's key assertions about Kirby Smart's tenure, that 11 players remained with the team after women had reported violent encounters. The precise count of 11 could not be substantiated under the AJC standards. The second error, improperly joined two statements a detective had made minutes apart into a single quote. Connecting the sentences did not change the meaning of the quote, but the way it was presented failed to meet AJC standards. So then the editor-in-chief said, our editorial integrity, blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't as though they were making up this, but it was the way that it was done was the grave error, and ultimately the person authoring the article was fired.
All right, well, I have a question, Paul and Craig. Its own standards, don't they have editors?
Yeah, that's.
Are the editors who approve the story, are their jobs in jeopardy?
I would think that they'd be up for review at the very least because
on something like this, you don't just write it, send it in, and you just kind of like we're going with it the next day.
I do think, and this is just me knowing, there's so many things, there's just so fast to get out, and this one seems like if they have these things that somebody didn't check or follow up on and meet their own standards, then yeah. I also know this, and I'm not trying to take Georgia's side on this here or take the AJC side. I have no side, but Georgia's a big deal. There's a lot of big deal people that are around Georgia now, and when you publish a story like that, you better be ready to dig in because there's going to be some big money people that are going to come at you because and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution wasn't ready for that.
You don't think they have big money people though?
Well, they do, but they weren't ready for Georgia to retaliate in that way, clearly, because they're now doing this and firing this reporter.
So the basic black and white of this is he didn't make anything up. But there were those two instances that I mentioned specifically that they found violated the standards. And, that obviously leads to a certain narrative, and the way that article was portrayed. This does not by any means just say, all of it was made up and Kirby's fine and there's no problems with players speeding or none of the, it doesn't say that. But it does say that, there were a couple steps taken that should have been taken as a result. The author lost his job, and I'm sure this feels like a win for some Georgia folks. And, a loss for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in so many ways, but that's the basic gist of this story.
All right, when we come back, Jim Williams will join us. He writes for Forbes and also, of course, has been in the media business, the sports media business too, and we've picked his brain a few times, and Jim's had some things he's thrown out there on Twitter that some of them have kind of they're still around. The possibilities are there. But what does he think right now? We'll have him. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. The Bauer family, the ownership, locally owned, operated. They also have a distribution meats company, Waco Meats. But here are the specials they have for this week. In fact, I cooked some of these earlier today. Chicken drumsticks at just 85 cents a pound. Put them in the electric smoker, put a little seasoning on them, and they are going to be delicious. Select brisket, $3.50 a pound. Tri-tip at $4.75 a pound. They also have 2-pound, 21 to 25 in a package, easy peel shrimp at $12.50 a pound, and 2 pounds of the 16 to 20 at easy peel shrimp for $13.50 a pound. Boneless pork butt, $2.35 a pound, and ring bologna at $3.50 a pound. A full-service butcher shop with pork, poultry, seafood, and beef and a bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches and cakes and pies and more every single day. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Care Drive in Waco.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Jim Williams, Washington-based CEO, media consultant, won a lot of Emmys, almost as many as Nick Saban's won national titles, maybe more, and he's also a part of course, Forbes and Zanger as a columnist joins us on 365 Sports. Jim, thank you very much for a lot of what you do for us at 365 Sports, and also thanks for your time today. So honestly, and I know you've floated out ideas a lot of times on Twitter, and some people react one way and some people react the other because it's gotten so visceral at times. But when you heard the story by Ross Dellinger that they would not announce the deal at Pac-12 Media Days, what was your initial reaction?
Just a missed opportunity, I can't say that I was surprised because I wasn't, but, it's opportunity. I floated out on Twitter, I think a day before, a couple of days ago, what if Tim Cook stepped out on this stage and said, I'd like to welcome you all here in Las Vegas and those of you around the nation and the world watching today's, Media Day on Apple TV Plus. And we're looking forward to next year being heavily involved. But this year we're going to take over and run the Pac-12 network. We're going to introduce our new partners in the coming weeks. And just, would you feel excited or would you, feel, basically wrecked? And it was about half and half. People were excited and people were wrecked. But, I don't know. I just, it's long, and I understand all of the things that go into it, but with the age of Twitter, with the age of, the self-inflicted wounds of setting deadlines themselves and then passing them, they're just, I still think they'll get a deal out of this that can keep them together, but Lord knows they're losing heavily in public opinion, and public opinion drives advertising and drives that whole routine. So it's going to be tough. That was a long answer for nothing, wasn't it?
No. I mean, you were being honest about what you. I saw that tweet about whether he got up in front of Apple, got up in front of everybody and said, "Hey, we're all in this together." But now that too shall pass until the possibility whenever. Paul?
Jim, there's always we don't have a deal done, but it's a good news that we don't. This one was now there's more people at the table, which would be great news if those people are legitimately interested. Do you think there are more people at the table now than there were 6 months ago?
I do, because, it's probably managed expectation, right? If you can get something that was, high priced a few months ago, but now is a lot less, then if I'm CBS, and I was thinking about it, but, didn't really, want to, bite off, more than we already invested in the Big Ten. Could I, do something for prime time? I might go back and take a look at it. Certainly, we found out recently that the CW Ion, they were at the table at one point in time, and maybe they're back. I don't see necessarily that NBC would be back. I don't think ESPN ever left. But I can see where it is certainly possible that that they're back. I mean, talking's easy. It's deciding on what you're going to do that's hard.
Jim, when it comes to that CW deal in particular, what do you think the likelihood is, or maybe the hopes are for the CW to, have a doubleheader of sorts? I'm sure you've seen the talk about, ACC during the day, the Pac-12 at night, and kind of a two-part question here. Just your thoughts on that in general, the whole idea of that, but also when it comes to that late night window, why does it specifically have to be, and this might be foolish, but specifically, does it have to be 9 Mountain Time? Like, why does it have to be a certain time to be considered that late night window, if you will? Could that not be an hour earlier and then BYU could fill a late night window, so to speak? Or does it have to be, 9 Mountain or beyond or whatever?
I don't think so. I just think that, they want, it's been programmed in there for a long time. It doesn't mean that, you can have after dark. 9 Mountain Time. 9 Mountain Time is 10 p.m. I'm sorry. It's 7. It's 6. I'm sorry. Screwed up. I'm screwed up. Okay.
7 Eastern. 7 Eastern. Yeah.
Time, no, wait. No, 9 Mountain Time would be 11 p.m.
Oh, that's right. I'm going backwards. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Wrong way. So, to your point, Craig, my math being totally aside today, it doesn't have to be. It can be 9 o'clock. It could be 9:30. It could be 10 o'clock. It doesn't matter because you're still going to be close to midnight, getting the thing over anyway.
So yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. So to the first part of your question, with the CW aspect of it, you guys got a guy, Sam Bradshaw, who, should be put at a network somewhere and hired and just keep him there, okay? Who breaks all this stuff down. And he talks about all the windows and all that routine. Okay. I find it hard to believe that I'm sitting there arguing, with ESPN to get me on your air when I'm going to be the 4th or 5th pick every week. And I could be the number 1 pick at the CW. Yes, ESPN will pay me money, but are we worried about money, which you can get for the streamer, or are we worried about exposure? What are we worried about? Because ESPN's not going to pay you a lot of money for whatever they're going to give you. They've already said that, and I don't see if they're coming up. So I don't necessarily see that the CW doubleheader would be a bad idea. I think it'd be a good idea.
Jim, you hear about Apple. You've mentioned them. You hear about linear. Pac-12 administrators have brought that up, that they want that to be a part of it. In the end, if today I put you on the spot, which is completely unfair because I don't know if anyone knows, but in the end, who will be, in your opinion? And if you're wrong, don't worry about it because we all been wrong. Whoever's even been saying it.
Yeah, I've been wrong 3 or 4 times a day.
It's a hard deal, but who do you think will be, let's say, 1A and 1B linear partners with the Pac-12 if they have 1A or 1B?
I'm going to go out on the limb here and say either Apple and Fox or Apple and CBS.
CBS, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they can do a prime time game in the East. If you're looking for if you're looking way outside the box, I'm with Craig in doing the CW deal because then I get I have a much better chance of getting more windows in the exposure. And I know people were on me about the CW, and I think I did a tongue-in-cheek answer saying that if you can't find the CW, perhaps you shouldn't operate heavy machinery, which didn't get a lot of laughs from people. But I thought, come on, it's a network, all right? You can find it and go for it. But honestly, I heard Pat Craig, he was on with you guys earlier in the week, I think. I wouldn't disagree with anything Pat said. Pat's a great guy. He understands, everything. Bob Thompson, they know what they're talking about. There's a slight difference between Bob and Patrick and I in that if I were the PAC, I would just embrace the streaming aspect of it and say, look, this is where we're going. This is how we're going to do it, and let's just dive. Because anything other than what we just talked about with Craig talking about the CW aspect, I'm never going to be top choice in any of those windows that they're offering. So if you're going to be 4th or 5th choice, what exactly does that get you?
Yeah, that's a great point, Jim. And that look, you've got to get where you can, and we talked about the CW months ago before the ACC even did this deal, and it was probably even in the ACC's mind as they were still trying to deal with the fallout from Bally Sports and all of that. Do you think some of these other players might be Ion back in it and Scripps? I know just from knowing some people that work for Scripps, they are in a major consolidation when it comes to the workforce and the news rooms right now. So it wouldn't make sense for them to spend out like this unless that's why they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I look, the CW and Ion, back when Smokey and I started in this business, and I said a thing to Branda the other day when people were ragging on Raycom for getting, involved with this package that the CW's got. I mean, look, if it wasn't for Raycom, there wouldn't be an ESPN. And, because Raycom used to sell them the games. I mean, ESPN didn't produce any games until 1980. I mean, outside, let me go back. Didn't produce any basketball games outside the Big East, I'm sorry, until the late 1980s, early 1990s. Because, they were buying from people like Raycom. There's Lorimar. Remember Lorimar?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's where they got the games from. They couldn't afford to produce those games. They bought the games. So, that's how it worked. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's funny, guys. You read in The Athletic, right, that the Utah Jazz are geniuses because now they're going to, put some of their games on broadcast TV in Salt Lake, and they're going to stream them direct to consumer, and they're geniuses. The PAC talks about it, and they're idiots. So, you make up your mind. I have no idea.
Well, even when the CW was brought up, and you did a long time ago, and people shot holes in it, and we don't know the answer to the final verdict, but when that was brought up with the Pac-12, there were a lot of people that scoffed at that. And here the ACC, now again, it's the lower tier, but they are at least doing something with them, so it was at least not like completely not an option.
No, and the point being that when we talked about it, I think we were one of the first to talk about it. But at the end of the day, the reason that, the ACC did, and Paul brought this back home, was the Bally's deal, right? And the Bally's deal went upside down, and so Raycom was there, and they had to put them somewhere. They contractually were not, in 2027, I think this is when the contract runs out, they'll go to ESPN+. That's where they'll go. But they weren't scheduled to go there. And so that's why they kept them in that regional deal. And, that I didn't see it was a bad deal. I mean, to me, it was, exposure is exposure. And if you can get it, you take it. And so they got it. But, I just, as I say, I think the only thing I differ in Paul, from Pat and Bob is that I'm not as timid about the getting the streaming if I'm not going to get a good time slot.
Jim, when it comes to ESPN right now, there's a lot of talk about, them firing people and just the changes being made. There's a lot of discussion, obviously, about them going direct to consumer sooner rather than later. How do you just see ESPN's whole place in the ecosystem? Because there will be some that, they're falling apart. They're not going to be able to pay their bills, which is ridiculous. And then there's the other side of it that no, everything's fine and status quo, which I don't know how vocal that side really is. But where do you fall on ESPN, their place in the ecosystem, and how do you read all of the moves that are going on and how that impacts potentially, college football broadcasts?
They're a $50 billion company that brings in $6 billion a year to Disney. They're one of Disney's most profitable arms. So let's just get that out of the way first. This is not going anywhere. What happened to ESPN has happened to many media companies, right? What happened is it got away from their core business. They started doing talk shows. They started doing these panels and all these other programming, the ancillary programming. They forgot that they were in the sports business. They ventured a little too close to the entertainment side. So, those contracts cost money because you're producing entertainment shows and not producing sports shows. So at the end of the day, they're just doing a retooling. Okay, I don't think it affects them in that regard, but I do think that what affects them is that the amount of money that they're going to pay for rights fees. And I think we've hit the top of the limit, at least for the time being, in college sports, and they're going to be much more selective. And when Bob Iger said, in a recent interview with Bloomberg, that look, we're willing to talk to partners, and he had Apple and Amazon on that partnership list. It makes some sense that you're going to see people, much like CBS did with with Turner, guys partnering up and saying, hey, look, if we can get these deals together and it's cost effective for us to do it, then let's do it. But I think that's going to be something that's going to be coming soon. I know that you got Astros and Rangers fans in your area who are going to wonder what's going to happen with Valley. Does Major League Baseball take them back over like they did with the Padres, and now this week they're going to do it with the Diamondbacks as well. If you're an NBA and a NHL fan, there's a lot of that content that's out there. So direct to consumer's coming, guys. It's here already, but it's coming in a bigger package. But honestly, I think that if I'm the PAC, I've got to embrace the streaming aspect, because I'm just not going to get the linear that's going to appease some of my members, and we all know who those guys are, and we know whether or not we'll have to see how they handle it. But I don't see them coming out of there with a package, that is much north of 50, if 50.
My last question, Jim, and thanks for your time today. There were quotes from a handful of reporters who quoted a Pac-12 source. We've seen folks come to the table that were not at the table 6 months ago. The patience the presidents and chancellors are showing is paying off, because waiting is going to result in a better deal than the league would have gotten 3, 6, 9 months ago. Some reporters went with that and some did not. Maybe it's because it's a trusted source, and some thought perhaps not. Wouldn't people coming to the table this late, because the Pac-12 is basically bidding against itself, or at least they're the only ones out there, would those who are coming to the table at the end of this, most of the time, doesn't that mean because they probably can get this product at a lower price, and so why not?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that a little bit ago. You're going to come back because, it's no pun intended, it's Prime Thursday. Everybody come on down. So, yeah, I mean, you're gonna try to cobble together a package that may be multiple networks that get you to a price point and get you to a linear point, right? But it may take 3 or 4 people to get you there. And so if I've got, 10 million per school from, column A, and 10 million from column B, and 10 million from column Z, and, I add them up, that might be how it ends up being. Maybe it's a, patchwork of 2 or 3 different people. But, it's not because they're in a point of strength. Otherwise, that there's a lot of stuff in those things that you read, and trust it or not, it doesn't square with business.
Jim, as always, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Obviously, on Twitter, you want to follow Jim Williams. He also does a lot of help, a lot of work in promoting what we do, whether he's on the show or not. We always appreciate you, sir, and thanks for your time.
Hey, enjoy. I hope you guys are going to have a chance to sit down and watch the Open this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Some good stuff going on. So,
tomorrow, overnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the Open Championship coverage. I think some of the big dogs start teeing off around 4:45 or so a.m. And then sometimes you wake up and the round is not over, but you may have missed a bunch of it. Thanks for your time. Jim Williams, Forbes columnist, Zenger, and many other places as well. When we come back, the 5 o'clock hour includes Brandon Marcello, who's at SEC Media Days. And then I still want to get to this one comment we have from A.J. Steward at the Texas High School Coaches Association Convention in Houston on Sunday. His thoughts about the first time he kind of, I guess, experienced the Dave Aranda uniqueness. That and more. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for an experience in buying a car. Your experience in going and getting your car fixed up, just your experience in having the peace of mind to ride around in a vehicle that you know is in tip-top shape and that's going to be safe on the road. I had a vehicle for a long time that did not give me peace of mind. I had a vehicle that had dents and bruises and bumps all over it from just various a road rage incident. Somebody swiped me on the side. I had some things to get taken care of with my car, and the place that I went to when it came to getting those fixes repaired was Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They are the people you can count on, again, whether it's their award-winning pro shop or if it's just going and checking out some of the great deals that they have right now over on the lot. Lance Aldridge and company, Donnie, all the folks over there do a great job. And right now they've got a lot of construction going on, which makes everything a little bit harder as far as arriving at the dealership, but they are making buying easier as a result with their construction sales event. Qualified buyers can get a pre-owned 2017 Ford F-150 for $376 a month, or a 2018 Chevy Equinox for $205 a month. Over 80 thoroughly inspected pre-owned vehicles, priced to sell. 100% approval is always their goal. You can call, you can log on, or head on over to the dealership for easy deals during the pre-owned construction sales event going on right now over at Richard Carr. You can visit the website, richardcarr.com, or go check them out in person. Be aware there is some construction going on, but because of that, they do have this great sales event going on. Whether you're buying new, pre-owned, or just getting your car fixed up, take advantage of all the great deals right now as they are celebrating the fact that the dealership is getting revamped and the road in front of it's getting revamped as well. You can celebrate too by getting into a new or pre-owned ride with a good deal of money off. Go check him out now, richardcarr.com, or off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. it's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
John Machota, theathletic.com, will join us on the Cowboys at 5:30. Zach Martin, the maybe one-day Hall of Famer, is wanting to look at his contract, and we'll see what that might be. He doesn't seem to be somebody that's going to probably create too much drama, but we'll get into that. And he is, of course, a phenomenal player. We're now joined by Brandon Marcello, who's been really good to be a part of our show whenever he can be a part of it, SEC Media Days. And, Brandon, thanks for your time. So Nick Saban goes to what? Italy. He likes carrot cake. What were some things, and we were having fun with that earlier in the show, a couple of things that from him that kind of stood out to you today?
Well, I think that reading between the lines, he's very much embraced the idea that Alabama is not the favorite in the SEC this year, and he's weaponizing that to get his team going. And I say that because of the players that we're talking today. J.C. Latham was saying that they feel disrespected by the media and the other fans and their expectations. And I straight up asked him, I go, what do you think when people say that they believe that Georgia is the new standard in the SEC? And he said, I don't think that. So it's you're seeing a little bit of a spicier, more motivated Alabama program this year. And secondly, I'll say this. He's in no hurry to name a starting quarterback. And really, we haven't seen something like this only one other time in the last, really decade, where he's had a quarterback competition that might not be settled when they go into week one. So very rare preseason picture here that Nick Saban's painting for everybody.
Well, I mean, that's the reason, right, that they're not picked first in the SEC West, or people are doubting them, is because they are bouncing around with the quarterback, and he's been so consistent at that position, just one after the other for a decade.
That too. Exactly. I also think that a lot of us have had our brains poisoned, so to speak, by the dominance of Georgia. And we finally have seen them turn the corner and be that program that everybody hoped they would be. I think also some of us tend to think that maybe Kirby Smart took the Nick Saban blueprint while he was obviously at Alabama and has maybe perfected it in this era of the transfer portal. Because I say that, he doesn't lose players to the transfer portal. And when they have to go to the portal, they only get 2 or 3 guys. And they're always guys that fill in immediate needs, and they're not have to lean on it. Meanwhile, look at Alabama. Nick Saban, he's a defensive coach, obviously. That's what he's known for. He's known as a guy who coaches the secondary and develops those guys. And you know what Nick Saban had to do this offseason? He had to go to the transfer portal and get 2 defensive backs from group of 5 teams. I would not have expected that a year or 2 ago. And I think that Nick Saban, recruiting-wise, some of these players he's had, especially in that secondary the last couple of years, they didn't quite pan out. And that's a question about their evaluation process. I'm not saying it's gone bad overnight or anything like that, but maybe it's lost a half a step here, while Georgia was not only gaining speed, but bypassed them in the SEC.
When it comes to Hugh Freeze, I know that they spoke, yesterday. Saw a couple of just clips of him. Seems to be back in his element. I think no one would deny that the guy's a great coach. It's a question of, can he hold all the parts of the program together? Do you sense a guy who's learned some lessons and is back and better for it? What just kind of your sense of Auburn and Hugh Freeze now at the helm?
Yeah, I think Hugh Freeze was very much low-key at media days, more so than in the past. He's kind of more even keel. And listen, that's kind of the sign of a veteran coach who's been through all this before, and he's been to media days before. He's obviously coached in the SEC before. But the way he was talking sounded a lot like when I went to the SEC media days for his first season at Ole Miss. He was kind of downplaying some things and saying, hey, I know that this team's better than the one we inherited just from the transfer portal, but I've got no idea what our team's going to look like, and we're just getting going here, and I don't know what to expect. I thought Hugh Freeze handled everything pretty well as far as just saying, listen, I'm not saying I got low expectations, but, man, we inherited a situation that was pretty dire, and it's going to take some time, guys. I know everybody's excited because of my past and what I've been able to do on the field and all that, but this is completely new and different, and I'm having to adjust myself as a coach.
So, seeing that he's at Auburn, the least patient place maybe on God's green earth, how does he manage expectations from – I mean, look, that's one thing to say to SEC media. It's another thing to have to tell it to Auburn over and over and over again.
You're exactly right, because he won't hear it right now because he hasn't played a game. But, as soon as he loses a game, he's going to start hearing it. He's going to hear it from different factions among the boosters and the fans, whether it's directly or through intermediaries. And his personal relationships are going to be tested. He's going to have to fight some battles behind the scenes there at Auburn. That happens quite a bit. But I'll say this, previous coaches there, Brian Harsin and obviously Gus Malzahn, probably not as personable as Hugh Freeze is, and I think that will certainly buy him some more stock, so to speak, from the fan base and also those boosters by proxy. And I think he's got a kind of a longer leash there as a result, because I think he's going to be able to utilize his personal relationships and development there to kind of maybe keep those dogs from barking as loudly as they might usually.
Brandon, South Carolina ended the year very well. It seemed like it all kind of fell together for Beamer and the team. And they have momentum when it comes to what they're doing with recruiting. Of course, that's the classes for next year. How legitimate and validated are they? Your opinion about maybe taking the next step?
Well, listen, if they're going to take the next step, they need to stop being inconsistent week to week. Man, watching them in person last year against Arkansas, their offensive line I thought was maybe the worst in the SEC. And I was like, how the heck are they going to get to 6 wins this year? And then I started questioning, well, is it the offensive line or is Spencer Rattler actually as bad as some people have been pumping up for whatever reason at quarterback when he was at OU? Then they improved throughout the season. The offensive line got better. I don't know how. And Rattler kind of got poised and put everything together and lifted the players around him and made them play better. They beat Tennessee. They beat Clemson on the road, but there were also some head-scratching games and some decisions there. Where's the consistency? I think the consistency comes from building more depth. And for them, that's the recruiting. And Beamer's been doing a fantastic job of recruiting and also in the transfer portal. I still think that they're like a year away, 2024, 2025, from being a team that's a little bit more consistent and challenging to maybe be a 9-win program. And with the schedule they've got this year, I was talking to a reporter today actually about Carolina. I think the floor for them is probably 5 wins and the ceiling 9. And I think that Carolina fans should probably be happy with 6 or 7 wins because they got to go to Tennessee, which is going to be a huge revenge game for Tennessee. And I just don't see how they win there. And they've got Georgia early in the season, and that's on the road too. Very difficult schedule.
I guess, Brandon, one of the more interesting, stories from the start of media days was, or most talked about certainly, was Jimbo Fisher and his comments about play calling and how Bobby Petrino will fit into the grand scheme of things. I know there's a lot of takes on how to take that whole situation, but where do you stand on Jimbo Fisher, Bobby Petrino, and how all that's going to work and unpack in College Station this season?
Well, I asked Jimbo Fisher, I straight up asked him, I said, is this a volatile situation? And that got him going a little bit, like volatile, but, it is a volatile situation because those are two very fiery personalities, and not just those two. Remember, you got Steve Adazio in that room too, as offensive line coach, and he is very vocal and opinionated. You got a lot of former head coaches on that staff who are accustomed to making the calls. And Bobby Petrino has not been an assistant coach in 21 years. He has not had to answer to anybody on game days other than to himself and his voices in his head in 21 years. And now he's got to answer to Jimbo Fisher, who all of a sudden is going, yeah, he might be calling plays, he might not. We hired him for a reason. Just being weird, really wishy-washy with all that. And, what happens, say, midway through the season and, they got 3 straight 3-and-outs and what Bobby's calling is not necessarily working and Jimbo takes it over or whatever. There's going to be opportunities there to test that theory of that it is a volatile situation. And Bobby Petrino, as I said, is a very fiery guy. His rants behind the scenes previously at Arkansas, Louisville, are legendary among his former players. And, I don't see how that all of a sudden has changed.
Oh, I'm sure that they'll get along famously.
If they get along, that's a problem. They need to be at each other's throats.
Yeah,
push each other.
But, Brandon, Billy Napier spoke today as well. He's got a really interesting situation at Florida in that this is a coach coming in very highly thought of for what he did at Louisiana and an up-and-comer and comes from the Saban tree, but he's not stepping into the Florida that everybody kind of knows, and they have quarterback problems. What do you think he's going to have to slog through in year 2 there in Gainesville?
It's interesting. A small group of us got to talk to him off to the side this morning when they arrived, and he was talking about how this is a program he feels so much better for year 2 because I think he said he had 93% of his roster, including newcomers, on campus in January. So he's already been able to develop, change these guys, and get it in their heads what to expect this upcoming season for the last 8-9 months. That's huge for him. He said we did not get that luxury last year. They brought in some pieces that help build that depth. And he also said, we made mistakes, not just as a team, but also myself as a coach. And I asked him, what were those growing moments? What did you learn about yourself? And he said some of the process things that I had to do differently going forward. And he feels so much better about that and how the players are more confident in him and that staff. I thought those were really kind of eye-opening to me to see him be so open to, hey, this is kind of where we went wrong, and this is what we're doing now to improve in year 2.
Brandon, what's going to be more disappointing, that the Pac-12 does not have a media deal in place when they start their media days, or that Deion won't be there?
Can the Pac-12 do anything right? It seems like it's just left and right. It's something bad's happening. Like, they don't have TV deal. All right, fine. But your absolute primetime entertainment, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, is not going to be at media day. And to be honest with you, he's the only reason why a lot of people are going to be going to Pac-12 media days as far as reporters. That's usually a lightly attended event. I'm sure it's going to be much more attended this year, but now Deion's not going to be there, and it's just not going to have that pop, that pizzazz. And again, as you mentioned, no TV deal to kind of lean on and pump up. And then also just take it they might as well be conducting this media day on the moon, and I say that because it's just like they can't get out of their own way. You're going to have a media day. You do it on a Friday. You're doing it in Pacific time. So by the time anybody says anything that's worth reporting or being out there or on TV, it's past noon on the East Coast on a Friday. People are leaving work. No one's paying attention to you, and you're only doing a media day for one day. So you got an 8-hour window, and during that 8 hours is the least amount of time that people are actually paying attention to the news on a Friday afternoon. It seems like everything the Pac-12 does just makes you scratch your head. It's so easy to fix some of these things, and they just can't get out of their own way. But also, I'll say this. It isn't like this is a decision that was made that Coach Prime just can't attend because he's having surgery.
Right.
He had to have this surgery before camp starts, and I hope he gets to be better and get well. But man, I'm not sure I'm going to miss that opportunity to see him at prime time in Pac-12 in Vegas.
So when George Kliavkoff comes out and says, "Look, we already told you no media deal," somebody's still got to ask him about how it's going. How do you think that winds up? Because I don't know if he'll be able to answer any questions not related to the media deal, because it doesn't seem like there's that much else going on with the league.
I think he's going to say that they feel like they're in a really good spot with it, and they're going to get the type of money that they're all hoping for, and that the deal will be announced soon. Despite everything you've heard since February, everybody going 2 weeks from now, no, a week from now. I think he's actually going to go up there and be firm. Go, listen, I've been quiet. He has not talked about this himself. It's been his president. I think he's going to try and show some leadership finally with this and say, it's coming soon. We kind of know what our money situation is going to be. It's going to be comparable to the Big 12. We feel like we're in a good spot. My presidents tell me they feel like they're in a good spot. We can't wait to announce it. Any other questions?
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate your time. As always, SEC Media Days in Nashville. Also a couple of nuggets about the Pac-12 without Deion this Friday, and also no media deal, but feeling as if George Kliavkoff, and boy, the Pac-12 and the members sure do need to hear that, something perhaps emphatic and strong from the commissioner. We come back, John Machota, theathletic.com, around the corner when it comes to Zach Martin. He'll end up being okay with all this, you would think, with the Cowboys, but a little bit of rumblings that he might want to wait a little bit to show up at training camp at Oxnard. And then also when we come back, Baylor running back A.J. Steward, and the first time he kind of had
running back's coach.
What did I say?
Running back.
Well, he's good enough.
He would love to be that young again, I'm sure.
Running backs coach at Baylor, A.J. Stewart, on the kind of an experience early on when he joined the Baylor staff on that uniqueness of Dave Aranda. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. They have a bunch of new things going on. And one of them, and I've told you before about some of the options and some of what might be on the table, but they now have, for example, from instead of $1,000 to $3,000 increased value and incentives for the Dodge Charger SXT. The Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab from what was $1,000 to now $6,000 in total values. So the push is on right now. Make this the summer sales event for Jeep, for Dodge, and for Ram. But think about that. The Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab had $1,000 in values, is now $6,000 in values. I got that text last week from Ted Teague, and I had to kind of like, wait a minute, is there like a decimal point missing? Because that's a huge difference. The Dodge Charger SXT incentives from $1,000 to a total of $3,000 in values and incentives. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Again, make this the summer sales event for Ram, for Jeep, and Dodge, and more. Ted Teague, the general manager, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton. Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
So at the Texas High School Coaches Association convention that's now wrapped up, I think it was 17 or 19,000 attended that. And Sunday was the day when a lot of the college coaches spoke like in a press conference type setting across a stage. And then some had, of course, they had their, I guess, like, for example, Matt Rule, Matthew Palage at Baylor, Rule at Nebraska, and many other coaches that had kind of like seminars with position coaches or what kind of defense they run and all of that throughout most of the convention. But Dave Aranda couldn't be there because his father had passed away. Baylor running backs coach A.J. Steward spoke. Probably each one of them had 15 to 20 minutes. We had a comment from Mac Brown about why he came back to this one, particularly this year. But A.J. Steward, on the first few days around Baylor football coach Dave Aranda and the Baylor culture and uniqueness of Dave Aranda.
Yeah, I think there's a couple situations that come to mind. The first, one of my first couple of days, we had a staff meeting, and then we had a team meeting, later on, and everything we talked about in our staff meeting, it was said in the team meeting. And not only that, we're getting ready for spring ball and everything, and he really never talked about football the entire 30 minutes of our team meeting, and it was all about us, and just the older guys bringing the younger guys along, like us building a true foundation for our season and all that. And that's usually there's some football that sneaks in and in those type of team meetings, and we only get these guys once a week. And I thought that really stood out to me. It's not just we don't just talk culture out in front of the cameras and all that. It's like behind closed doors, that's that's been pushed, and you can tell that it's very important to him. And then also we had a staff meeting, and he uses a lot of videos and movies and things like that. And so one of the first ones he showed was Forrest Gump, and it was when Bubba Gump was telling Forrest about the shrimp, where he goes on that spiel about all the shrimp. And I'm, it was about a 2.5-3 minute clip. And, in my mind, I'm like, okay, where's this going? And then the way he's able to bring a movie clip like that back into like how it fits us, and how I just think he's the best that I've ever been around when it comes to that. And really the whole thing was, we want to be, Bub at the beginning, he said, everything started from shrimp, and all these different variations, came from the shrimp. But at the end of the day, we can't lose sight of just the shrimp, and it's kind of, an identity thing and kind of how it pertains to culture and just everything we say we want to be. And I just thought it was so profound. And I liken him to kind of like a pastor almost, in a way that he's able to use these tangible, visual references or, these different metaphors to really bring everything back and like crystallize the message. And so it's been a blessing for me just to be around his leadership style. And I've learned so much, just in a short amount of time, and the uniqueness of how he presents things and just the way he doubles down and emphasizes the culture daily is.
And he ended that with it's very impressive. So Forrest Gump.
Oh, look,
shrimp.
Much credit to Dave Aranda in using one of in my life, one of the most beloved movies I've ever seen. I love that movie. I've seen it 100 times. I know exactly what he's talking about. But yeah, it is unique that he can do that. I thought it was funny that AJ said that sometimes football sneaks into the meetings because they're doing so much culture building that it gets around to football. But I'm curious of how many of our 20-somethings have seen Forrest Gump.
All right.
Okay, good. 2 out of 3.
You haven't seen Forrest Gump? Wow.
No.
Like there's movies when people say you haven't seen such and such, and I'm like, yeah, I could see like Forrest Gump. That's wow. That's
and Jack being the history buff that he is, I think would probably enjoy it.
Yeah, so. That's a Tom Hanks like top 2 movie. I would say, if not number 1 for probably most people. But yeah, it's up there. That's an American classic in my mind. So yeah, I do think Jack probably would like that a good bit. But yeah, that's surprising and. Yet not surprising that Dave Aranda's finding unique ways to teach lessons. I think pretty well established that he does things a little bit differently and that he is a unique guy, but one that is very transparent and very much, a guy that talks the talk, but walks the walk as well. And you don't always get both of those things in this business or just in life in general. But I think Dave Aranda does check both boxes and all this culture stuff's great. I think the culture is healthy, but does it translate to wins is the question mark. And so I've heard my fill of, culture this and culture that, and I don't mean that negatively. I just mean like it all sounds great. I'm full on it, and I can't wait to get to the season and seeing how much that culture and the building throughout the offseason and the changes they made actually resulted in a different outcome from just the miserable nature of last year. Like the whole year was bad. It was good, fine, whatever, up until K-State, and then it just went completely off the rails and was just ugly. It was just dysfunctional from watching. It just felt like there was 4 different people trying to do 4 different things all on the same team. You know what I mean?
Different directions.
And it didn't add up, especially for a Dave Aranda-led team. So, yeah, I think they're a really curious case in the Big 12. If you put them in the bottom half, I don't blame you. If you put them in the top half, I can see it. If you put them at the very top, I think you're nuts because I don't think there's nearly enough to point in that direction. But we weren't expecting the run they went on 2 years ago. We weren't expecting the lack of a run they went on last year. So I don't know what to expect this season other than, they should win – 7 games or so, and then, how that goes one way or the other will depend on a lot of factors like health and whatnot, but they seem to be saying the right things. That's what I know.
All right, so, and I agree, Craig, it's one thing to have all this, it feels good and all that, and the Berenstain Bears and all that, but it's it was great because 12-2, and now you want to see the results. Paxton has seen it. He's 23, Forrest Gump. Alan Train. Nope, he was talking about something else. Alan Train, I have. Barry Crawford, I have. Bobby B.
I think the outlier will be who hasn't.
No, if you're older, like question was 20, like movies from the 90s kind of miss
Paxton's
the 20-something now, so that's Paxton's the one. Yeah, if you're 40 or older or 35 or older, I assume you've seen it. Like it was just, especially because you were that age when it came out, it was just everywhere. But Paxton says, I like old movies. Remember Flash Gordon? Yes, I do remember Flash Gordon. It is a very weird movie.
I remember Flash Gordon back when it was a Saturday morning comic. But it's like one of the cartoons.
But it came out in the early 80s, and it was very weird. Queen did the soundtrack. Flash, like it was very weird. It was definitely a movie done by people doing a ton of drugs.
Of the new movies out this summer, John Wick was out, a month ago or so. It's already out of movie theaters. You're about to have Mission Impossible. Mm-hmm. You're about to have Barbie.
I really want to see Oppenheimer. I'm big on that.
That's the one where they push the button, right?
Well, that's it. I bet Robert Oppenheimer, the guy who developed the bomb.
Yeah, I don't go to movie theaters very often. I was at John Wick, and then I walked out early, and that's about the time Jennifer called to say that she was getting engaged. I don't know why I walked out. I just couldn't get locked into John Wick, but maybe I'll go back or get to watch it on pay-per-view at home. I don't know. But this is the biggest weekend, right? This is when you have Barbie and Mission Impossible coming out at the same time.
Well, Mission Impossible's been out, and Oppenheimer and Barbie come out, so they're trying desperately to get people back in movie theaters, but I don't know, man. I like to do it.
Top Gun saved the movie theater business
for
last summer.
A little bit.
I can't get over you describing Oppenheimer. That's the one where they push the button. That's just your whole wrap up of Oppenheimer.
Is that not the
one where they push the button?
That's kind of oversimplifying, like how they got
stupid,
there,
right?
Yeah,
the creation of the atomic bomb and how that all came to be, and then we as an American or as a country unleashed that twice. And the whole I mean, you're right. It was about pushing a button, but it's just that's so simplified. That's the most simplified summary of a movie I've ever heard in my entire life.
That's like saying The Shining is the one about the hotel.
Yeah, like that's the most simplistic and still accurate. But
and JUCO, there you go. I mean, thank you to Tyler Junior College. We appreciate that. We interviewed a young man from TJC, Savage from Kansas State last week at Big 12 Media Days. All right. So when we come back, John Machota writes on the Cowboys for theathletic.com. We appreciate it. Are you going to Barbie?
No, I'm not going to go to Barbie. I'm not going to say I would never watch that movie just because Margot Robbie's in it.
If somebody asked you to go to Barbie, will you go?
If I don't get asked to do things, Smokey. I get told to do things now. I'm married. So if I get told we're going to Barbie, I'm probably going to Barbie, but I don't think that's going to happen. So
I'm not going to go to the box office for that one.
No.
But I don't know if I get a wild hair on vacation. I might go see Oppenheimer, and that would be right up my alley, I think. But I'll wait for Barbie on one of the streamers.
I'll be going to see Mission Impossible in the theaters for sure because it's a Tom Cruise big blockbuster.
Are they any different? Are they any different?
They
like
somehow,
Top Gun was really good.
They are getting better. Like he did with Top Gun. He's been doing this with Mission Impossible for a while. He's making them better as they go on.
Well, good, because you know how I am about sequels. All right, and Rocky 37 comes out sometime during Christmas. When we come back, John Machota on how serious is this Zach Martin contract thing? I'm sure it's going to work out. And will the Cowboys end up with former Baylor receiver Denzel Mims? That and more, and this is 365 Sports. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience if you're trying to change your body and also how fit you are or how healthy you are. Offering 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camps, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there, they have changed up a lot of the painting. They've added mirrors. They've also changed the flooring, and there are new machines, including a brand new squat machine that will test your legs, your quad, your thighs, and or your calves, and even the endurance too. There is personal training available. Welcome to Nathan Roach. He's the newest of the personal trainers, motivated to grow. There's a whirlpool. There's sauna. The locker rooms are spacious and also clean. And on top of that, there's a tennis academy in the back with unbelievable amount of tennis courts, including a stadium court that seats about 1,100 or so, with Britt Coleman handling the youth tennis, and then also Blake handling, along with Kenna, the adult tennis lessons. Pickleball courts, 8 of them. Pickleball lessons, if you want, with Jody Thurman. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
one size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one size fits all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com, or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
John Machota with us, 365 Sports. John, I think you finally got away on a vacation, if I'm not wrong, last week. And Cowboys beat writers, we've mentioned this, columnists, they don't get a chance to go on vacation. Where did you go? Where did you get away? What that you could tell us?
Yeah, I ended up going up to Michigan. That's where I'm from originally, right outside Detroit. Right. I went up there for about 4 or 5 days, hung out with some family and friends. Yeah, it was a good time. Weather was cool. So, just in time to get back here and hear about players potentially holding out from training camp. So here we go.
Well, and that's my, I guess, question, and we'll get into other things too. But Zach Martin, how serious is this? And it's not like he's not going to play, but what are they going to do?
Well, I think it's particularly interesting because you kind of forget about guys like that. You almost take Zach Martin for granted because you know he's under contract for 2 more years, and he's a bargain on a deal that averages $14 million a year for a position that the top guys are getting paid $20 million a year. So, just most of your focus is on, well, they got to get another contract for Dak or CD or Trayvon Diggs. And, even Terrence Steele's been mentioned. And obviously Micah's not that far down the line. And then it's like, oh, wait, you might want to take care of some of your own too, because they might not be happy with their current salaries. And so I'll be a little surprised if he misses multiple days of training camp just because of the fact of how, he'll be fined because of that. And it's not the way it used to be where, that the team can just waive those fines. And so I wouldn't be surprised if something got done to maybe add a couple years on his current deal. And then also what it would do is lower his cap number for this year. So that would make some sense. So, but I just don't see Zach Martin, especially where he's at in his career and how good this team has been and how close they are to, making a deep playoff run. I don't see him missing significant time for this, but it is something that I don't think that the Cowboys should take lightly.
Now, does he move anywhere to the front of the line on these extensions then? Because he is, one of the three most important players on that team?
Yeah, probably. Probably does. And I kind of look at, in a way that, DeMarcus Lawrence deal that got done last offseason where it kind of moved some money around and it took care of DeMarcus at where he's at in his career. Obviously, DeMarcus is in the same 2014 draft class as Zach Martin, but this one's going to have to be a little bit more of a raise for Zach. And let's be honest, he deserves it. I mean, Zach, when he's healthy, which has been almost the entire time he's played in the NFL, he's been arguably the game's best guard that entire time from day one. And so this isn't some guy that you look at and go, oh, well, he's just upset because of the position he plays and it's undervalued. I mean, his value is great on this team, not only on the field, but as a leader in that locker room. So, yeah, no, I think he does jump some of those other guys. But with that being said, I do think it'll probably be easier to get something done with him because I don't think it would be looking for necessarily maybe as many years as some of those other guys, because those other guys are all, outside of Dak are looking for their first, post-rookie contract deal. And so that'll be a little bit different than what Zach is doing here. So maybe it is one of those things where it's a little bit easier because maybe they just add 2 years on his current deal.
I know Dak and the value because of who else is a quarterback in that particular quarterback room, but where would you put Zach Martin? Paul mentioned among the three most important players on the team. Where would you put him in priority of it? You just cannot let him get hurt?
I think 3 is probably right where he would be, and that would be behind Micah and Dak, and that's because Micah is arguably the best defensive player in the entire league, and Dak is their franchise quarterback, and that's the most important position really probably in all of sports. And so that's the only reason those two are above him. But yeah, Zach's next because it's not only just what he brings at right guard, but just how much things fall apart on that interior of the offensive line if you don't have Zach Martin. They're obviously going to be going into this training camp and left guard is going to be one of the biggest, question marks. And we're going to, be watching how they're going to fill that. And then, so if you were to all of a sudden be without your right guard, I mean, the interior of the offensive line is extremely weak if that happens. And so then you add in the fact that you're talking about a guy who, I mean, I can't think of anybody outside of like maybe, Quentin Nelson in terms of guards that are on the level of Zach Martin. There might be one or two others, but I don't think anybody's clear cut better than Zach Martin. He's still at the top of his game.
John, do you think that there's anything to the Cowboys kicking the tires on Denzel Mims?
Probably not a lot. He'd have to probably come pretty cheap, if it's one of those things, then yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But it's just like kind of the DeAndre Hopkins thing. I don't think they'll be the highest bidder. And then look at how DeAndre Hopkins ended up going to the Titans. Do you think that DeAndre Hopkins went to the Titans because that was his dream team the entire time? He's like, man, I just hope the Titans offer me a deal. God, I would love to play for the Titans. No, it comes down to there's just some teams that are willing to pay more, and then you're going to take that. And so if Mims wants to play for a pretty cheap contract to be, a 3A, 3B type thing with Michael Gallup, then yeah, it would be possible. But I find it hard to believe he's not going to be finding better opportunities out there. Now, let's say he doesn't sign with somebody's out there, and let's say like Cooks or Gallup or even CeeDee Lamb suffered some type of a setback in training camp, then yeah, by all means. But with all three of those guys looking to be ready day one of training camp, I don't think that one is a very high priority for this Cowboys team.
I can't find the tweet from someone who reports on sports business, but mentioning the distribution the NFL each team is getting. I'm not sure if you've seen that, John, or not, but it looks like it's now the salary. What is the salary cap right now?
I don't have it in front of me, but I did see that tweet that you're talking about. And I think I can't remember how many billions it was, because why I came out is because the Packers are like publicly owned, and because of that, I think they're the ones that it was released. Like the Packers announced that they received $375 million. So that means if you multiply that by 32 teams, you're looking at them divvying up $11.1 billion. So yeah, that's why you always got to keep that in mind when you talk about these contracts. I know people see this with the players and they're like, yeah, we can't be paying this guy this much because then we got to give it to this guy and all that. I get that, and there is a salary cap, so you have to operate within that. But it also, like, you should never hold it against these guys. There's plenty of money being made there for the owners. The players deserve a huge chunk of that.
Oh, and then you put that into perspective with what teams, as far as the report that might have been exaggerated, but at least when you look at what the SEC or the Big Ten universities are getting, and then which may be 75, 80 million. There's been estimates higher than that, and you're talking 375 million per 32 teams. Of course, there are hundreds of schools in college athletics, but that is, man, there's just no comparison, none.
And the cap is 225. That's what it is. It's 225 million this year. So yeah, and that's a let's see, that's about 8% increase I see from last year. So I mean, it continues to go up. So obviously that's a good thing. And so you see that number and honestly, it's a good thing that those numbers get put out there so that people can see, because that's the thing. Like, we know what Dak makes and we know what CeeDee Lamb makes and Zach Martin, but we don't know what Jerry Jones makes. And that's the thing. Like, heck, we don't even know what he makes just off parking for those 8 to 9 home games at AT&T Stadium every year, and what he makes off the concessions and all that. And if all of that was being put out there, I don't think you'd ever hear anyone saying that, yeah, you can't be giving Dak Prescott 40, 50 million. If you saw the number that Jerry and the Jones family and all these other NFL teams are bringing in, I think you'd be just fine with what the players are getting.
Look, he just made $750 off of our company for 2 days at Big 12 Media Days.
Yeah, for a damn internet.
I mean,
yeah.
No
was
way
already there.
We have to go. We have to do the show. The only way that we can do that is to give them that money. And so there you go, right there. I mean, that's just us. That's not even the Big 12 paying him to turn the lights on that day.
Well, and see, I've always heard that's kind of been the sticking point between the Cowboys or Jerry Jones and AT&T Stadium getting one of those big, fights that always seem to go, like the big boxing matches that usually end up in Vegas. And the reason they do is because, when those, let's say Floyd Mayweather's fighting, he gets a percentage on the concession and then some other things too. And so for him to have a major fight, at least when he was in his prime at AT&T Stadium, from everything I've heard, he would have wanted a percentage off of parking and concession and all that. And like I said, from what I've heard, Jerry was never going to let that happen.
John, thank you. Welcome back. Get ready for training camp. I know you'll have to rough it for a few weeks in Oxnard, California. The beauty of Oxnard and, of course, the coast of California north of L.A. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5. We have discussed the Mountain West and their agreement to stay within the Mountain West Conference with San Diego State, or vice versa, San Diego State. We've looked at the SEC Media Days with Brandon Marcello. Jim Williams, media consultant, has joined us on many things, college football, college athletics and TV, money and deals. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and I believe soon to open downtown. I drove past it. Looked like it was nice and full. So they're about to have 2 locations, and that means 2 spots that you can find the best bourbon, especially locally sourced bourbon in Central Texas, the best selection of craft beers in Central Texas. That's what they do at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, in addition to their excellent customer service, their excellent knowledge, their speedy drive-through window at the original location at Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street. Man, you just go through that drive-through window, you tell them I need this, this, and this, and then before you even handed your credit card through the window, they've got it all ready for you. It's unbelievable what they do there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. They're also available on DoorDash, so if you're hanging out at a barbecue and nobody can make a beer run, well, you can have the beer run come to you because they are available on DoorDash. That's Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, that's TexasBeefHouse.com. Everyone, when they think of Wagyu, the first thing they think about is beef, and that's obviously what you guys specialize in, and you raise it right there from your pasture to the customer. The fillets, you have ribeyes, you have New York strips. I've tried them all. These are always available, correct, by ordering online?
Yes, everything's available, TexasBeefHouse.com. You can order one package of steaks up to as many packages as you want. All the steaks come 2 steaks per package. We've got New York strip fillets. The fillets are so tender you can almost cut them with a fork. Ribeyes. We've got top sirloin, and we've got regular sirloin, and even flat iron, flank steak, and flap steak. They're all great.
Oh, that sounds great. Fajita meat?
Yes, we've got skirt steak and flank steak that we use for fajita meat.
Samantha Duvall's the marketing director with Aaron Duvall, of course, in the Duvall family. What they've done, family-owned, operated, and they run. TexasBeefHouse.com. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu, not just steaks, but also so much more. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, PettyClinicLowT.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 things Kansas must do to win the Big 12. I tell you, these things are getting harder and harder.
No, they're not. I think they should get easier. Because the lower you go, that means the more they need.
Yeah, but some of it's just not like realistic. I don't want to sound like a doofus for saying some of this stuff. So, anyway, I digress. Top 5 things Kansas must do to win the Big 12. Number 5, play with confidence again. The difference between Kansas last year and Kansas in many previous years is this was a team that from the very beginning of the year played with confidence. They felt they could win every single game, whether it was true or not, but they believed it. They believed in themselves, and they had that attitude on the field. That's what Lance Leipold installed in them, and they rolled through it. Until Jalen Daniels got hurt. I mean, when you start out and you're bowl eligible before, some of the other teams in the conference that were obviously going to be, and you hadn't been for so long, you played with a lot of confidence. Now, they're not going to sneak up on anybody this year, but if they can still play with that same confidence, that's what's going to take them far.
I don't know if any team, and it doesn't mean they had a swagger, but I don't know of any group of players who were at Big 12 Media Days who enjoyed it more and were also very confident in who they were.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's to be expected, though, guys. I mean, let's not forget where they've been the last few years. They were not just the worst team in the Big 12. They were the worst team, arguably, in college football. I mean, completely incompetent. Les Miles just decided to take what was already kind of halfway in the ground and just bury it even further with his actions. And, it would be hard not to be more optimistic, quite frankly, if you're Kansas fan and then seeing what unfolded at the start of last year. But because of Jalen Daniels, there's a reason to believe that it's more than just a fluke. There's actual real confidence behind it because of him being back, and you can start there and then trickle down effect to others. But I mean, I think it all starts with him. I mean, really it begins with Lance Leipold, but the fact that you've got a dynamic, super talented alpha dog type of leader there at the most important position, I think that just goes throughout the team, and I'd imagine with him back under center or shotgun or however they use him, they're going to play with confidence again because it's going to emanate directly from that spot, and I think it's probably already affected a few others as well. So they're definitely going to be confident.
I am so disappointed we didn't get a chance to speak with him and or Jalen Daniels. There was a couple of times I tried to get Daniels off to the side. It was always a reason we couldn't because they were around. I mean, they were around as much as anybody. And I just think Lance Leipold has this look on him, that old school coach look. He might be very modernized, but I'd love to have a chance to visit with him. Kind of like a more serious version, not that Chris Kleiman's not serious, of Chris Kleiman.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, go on a long winning streak. I don't think that Kansas is going to win this. Look, 9-3 probably could have a reasonable shot at getting you in the Big 12 title game again, but I don't think they're going to do it if they win 2, lose 1, win 3, lose 1. I think they need to, 5 or 6 game winning streak they went on last year, that needs to be like 8 games or so. They really need to roll through it because they do have some depth deficiencies and things that'll go on, which kind of goes on. So, I don't think that they're going to be able to do it, piecing it together throughout the season. I think they need to kind of rattle it off, start out the year, and just roll through, and then they've got a shot. I don't think they can maybe do it how some teams might be able to kind of fight their way out of a slump. I don't think Kansas is built that way yet. I think they need to kind of roll through when it starts.
Well, they have Illinois in week 2.
To be tough.
And that will be interesting because Bielema has done a nice job with the Fighting Illini, but that'll be a nice matchup. And it's not like, they can't win that game. Sure they can. And then they start off with Brigham Young at home, and then they have Texas, UCF, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Tech, K-State, and Cincinnati. So they've got some of the ones who are picked near the top with Kansas State, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas Tech among the leading vote getters as far as the media poll, if that means anything.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to put any streaks together unless it's at the very beginning. I could see them doing it there, but beyond that, I don't see them going on runs and beating like Oklahoma and then Oklahoma State and then beating who would follow that, Baylor in between there. I mean, in theory they could, but bookmarked by Tech and it's just where the 3-4 games going to come into play. I don't see it, but I can see a start to the year where they win a bunch of games. That was last year. Sorry, that Tech TCU. The beginning, I still maintain exactly what I said. Illinois will be tough, but you could see them getting a win over Missouri State, a win over Illinois at home, a win over Nevada. That's 3-0 right there. BYU right out of the gates at home. That's 4-0. I could see that. Beyond that, it's harder to see because just the chain of teams. Are you going to go beat Texas? and then, okay, beat UCF, then the Oklahoma. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, if they're going to have a streak, it's going to probably be there at the very beginning. And if it's beyond that, then holy cow, they're probably making a whole lot of noise in the whole, grand scheme of things.
Can you imagine with the hype right now and the expectations this year with Texas, if in fact KU does it again at the end of September? One of the best things about their schedule, this may not sound, they don't play Baylor. Baylor has won 13 straight against Kansas and have beaten them up a lot during that time. One of the closest games when RG3 brought Baylor back from way down in the Heisman Trophy year, but they have beaten Kansas up quite a bit. They're not on their schedule.
Yeah, it's bad news for Baylor. I mean, Baylor got a lot of good news on their schedule. They had 8 home games, for crying out loud. But they don't have to go to, they don't play Oklahoma, all that. But, that was probably the one thing of bad news is the one team that you have a really legit long winning streak against, you don't get to play them this year, Baylor. Number 3, hold leads better. And we'll talk about the defense in a second. I know this is a big part of it, but I do think because the defense is probably going to be a little better. I don't know if they have the players to be legit, like way, way better. But I do think that means that to do that, like even if you don't get a stop, that if you don't get a stop, you got to respond with a score almost every time because that's how their offense is going to have to run. So you can't, have those things where you have all of a sudden you've got this 17 or 21 point lead and it evaporates. Like if you've got a 21 point lead, you better keep it at 21. You better, if they score, it's 21-7, you better make it 28-7 right after that to give that defense a little bit of a break. And we will talk about the defense in a second.
Well, I think maybe we should go ahead and get to that because I think that they go hand in hand together. Is the kind of the similar response that I would have to both of them.
All right, so number 2 is keep Jalen Daniels healthy. Look, when he went down last year, that's when
That's not number 1.
No, you'll see what number.
Okay.
Keep Jalen Daniels healthy. And these might be 1 and 1A. Together, but they got to keep him healthy. When he was healthy last year, they're absolutely in every game. He is such a fantastic gamer. He is so fun to watch late in games. And when you are going to be playing close games in the Big 12, like everybody pretty much will be, you want a guy who can make the plays. We were asked a couple weeks ago in the chat room, or maybe it was last week, if everything's equal on a team, which quarterback would you want 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter?
To drive 70 yards for a touchdown.
Mine would be Jalen Daniels.
Yeah, I mean,
you want 2 minutes left and him to do it. If you're talking everything equal, across the board, I want Jalen Daniels.
He also can get you some yards and scramble and keep a drive alive with that too.
Yeah. So, and number 1, play a lot more D. They're going to have to do that a lot better. That goes hand in hand with, holding the leads and all that. But they've got to do a lot better on defense where you don't just jump out to these big leads and then all of a sudden you're in a game. Your defense needs to assert its authority and it needs to be able to say, like, yes, it is 21-0 and we will stay at this point for a little while. So they were not able to do that when they got into the meat and potatoes of the conference, even though they did wind up in a bowl game last year. That was their big problem. They've got to get better on that side of the ball. They've got some promising things happening over there, but it's really tough, even in the transfer portal era, just to go from, kind of an adventure on defense to someone who is lethal in a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of look at 3 and 1 as sort of the same thing, just because they're kind of dealing with the same mindset and the same angle of just, you got to help out your offense, right? I mean, your offense appears like it's going to be pretty good once again, and you've got the guy who makes it all happen back and healthy and ready to go, and some more veterans alongside of him that now have another year in the system, and not to mention all the tweaks that you made during the offseason and the incoming guys. So, I mean, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about what they can do as far as their ability to score points. But, their defense was just not very good. And that's why I'm not sitting there putting them up at the top of the Big 12 is because I need to see a little bit more of an improvement there. Last year to this year is not a completely black and white comparison because a lot of different things have changed, but outside of their opener against Iowa State, which was a 14-11 game, and it was 14-11 as much probably because of Iowa State's style as anything else, because they seem to play a lot of games like that. But you gave up 38 to TCU. That's actually kind of respectable against them. 52 to Oklahoma, 35 to Baylor. You beat Oklahoma State 37-16. There's obviously some things going on in Stillwater at that point, but gave up 43 to Tech, 55 to Texas, 47 to K-State, 55 and 3 overtimes to Arkansas. So, like, past that Iowa State game and then just the Oklahoma State outlier when we know they weren't operating at full strength, that's bad defense. That's way too many points to be able to go where you want to go. So, yeah, I think it kind of goes without saying that people are confident in them because of the quarterback and the coach and some of the weapons. But if you're hesitant, it's probably revolving around that defense and the fact that they have a lot of room for improvement.
All right, Paul, Kansas, I'm so glad you were motivated to continue all the way through the media poll and do all the teams, top 5, on what they need to win the Big 12. All right, thanks to Grant Bronstein and Levi Caraway. Jack McKenzie, man, great job with you, Jack. Craig Smoak, as always, and Paul Catalina. For those of you who have texted us today, on Twitter today, in the chat room today, we appreciate you always. Tomorrow, we'll have David Ubben on the show from theathletic.com, also Max Olson, and a few other good guests for you. A little bit with Phil Steele that Paul's going to be able to do early tomorrow afternoon for Friday. I'm David Smoak. Thanks to our incredible sponsors. Every day we appreciate you, your time, whenever it is. 3 to 6. Good night, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.